Chapter 842. The sound of the 5 people trading alarmed the other cultivators. Some people came over, but there weren't many people here. Only 2 people came over to watch the 5 of them trade. One of them said, "I also have some thunder-type materials. I don't want to trade for top-grade stalagmites. Fine stalagmites will do." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "No problem." Everyone started to feel numb. They didn't know how many stalagmites Lei Xingfeng had. Moreover, the ones he took out were either fine or top-grade. It was terrifying. Lei Xingfeng used 3 fine stalagmites to trade for another batch of thunder-type materials. He was very satisfied with this trade, especially that strange stone. He quietly put the stone into Lei Yin. When it entered Lei Yin, it instantly melted. Lei Xingfeng couldn't find a trace of it, but he could clearly feel that the quality of Lei Yin had increased. "Fatty, where did you get this black stone? Do you have more?" Fatty smiled and extended a finger. "A supreme-grade stalagmite." Dude couldn't help but scold. "Are you crazy? You want a top-grade stalagmite for this kind of information?" Lei Xingfeng pondered for a moment and said, "It's not that it's not worth it. If there are more of these stones, then it's worth it. Otherwise, it's not worth it." "Fatty, the place you found. Are there more of these stones?" Fatty smiled strangely and said, "I'll tell you the location. 1 top-grade stalagmite. If there are more of these stones, you'll have to find them yourself. If you want me to help you find this stone, 2 top-grade stalagmites." The 2 cultivators who came later asked, "What stone? Is it that valuable?" Lei Xingfeng said, "It's a thunder-type material. It's very rare." One of the cultivators asked, "What kind of stone is it? Can you show it to us?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "It's not that I don't want to show it to you, but it's already been absorbed by my seal." The fact that it could be absorbed by Yin proved that this material was very important to Lei Xingfeng. Moreover, the fact that it could not wait for Yin to absorb it meant that this material was very suitable for Lei Xingfeng. The cultivator said, "What a pity." He shook his head regretfully. If he could take a look at it, he wouldn't miss it in the future. Although it wasn't something he could use, he wouldn't miss it when searching for materials in the future. Fatty hesitated for a moment before saying, "Give me 3 stalagmites of the highest quality, and I will be responsible for finding these stones for you." He already felt that his offer was too low, because he realized that Lei Xingfeng needed these strange stones. Lei Xingfeng said, "Deal. However, you have to wait until the stone is found before I can pay you the 3 best quality stalagmites." Dudiku said, "F***CK. Why didn't I encounter such a good thing?" The fat man beamed with joy and said, "Is that so? All right, I'll take you there. You guys wait here, I'll bring him over." "Ha 3 top-grade stalagmites. That's enough for me to use." The others all had expressions of envy and jealousy. Dudiku said, "Let me remind you, Fatty. If you fool him, the consequences will be severe." The Fatty rolled his eyes and said, "Am I that stupid?" With that, Fatty opened a secret door and left with Lei Xingfeng. In an instant, Fatty and Lei Xingfeng arrived at an unfamiliar place. There weren't any restrictions around, or else the secret door wouldn't have been able to reach it. Lei Xingfeng said, "Here." Fatty said, "Of course not. This place only allows us to get close to that place. That place can't be reached by the secret door." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "How far is it?" Fatty said, "Very soon. We'll reach it very soon." With that, he broke into a run. Although he was fat, he was light and agile when he ran, and his speed was relatively fast. Lei Xingfeng hurriedly followed and ran forward. Soon, they saw the shadow of a restriction. Fatty seemed to be very familiar with this place. He ran along the edge of the restriction, as if he knew that there was a restriction next to it. At the intersection of 2 restrictions, there was a small path squeezed out by the edge. Fatty ran along this small path, and Lei Xingfeng asked, "You know there's a restriction next to it?" Fatty said, "Of course, I'm very familiar with this area. I've come into contact with almost all of the restrictions here. I know where there are restrictions and where there aren't. There are restrictions on both sides of this path. When you follow me, be careful and don't step into any of the restrictions." Lei Xingfeng laughed in his heart. He wasn't an idiot when it came to restrictions. In this world, there were probably very few people who were better than him in restrictions. He didn't dare to say that he was the best at restrictions, nor did he know the most, but he was definitely one of the best restriction grandmasters. Following Fatty, they quickly passed through the edge of 2 restrictions and arrived at an area with rocks. Fatty said, "This is a restriction area. We need to break through it. Do you want to go by yourself, or do you want me to bring you over?" Lei Xingfeng said with interest, "What price do you have to pay to bring me over?" Fatty said, "A supreme grade stalagmite." Lei Xingfeng immediately laughed and said, "Then if I bring you over, will I be able to save a supreme grade stalagmite?" Fatty was instantly confused. He said, "How is that possible?" Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "Why not? Isn't it the same concept if you bring me over and I bring you over? We're both bringing people over. Why do I have to pay a supreme grade stalagmite if you bring me over? If I bring you over, I get nothing. That's not fair." Fatty said, all right, I'll take it that I was wrong. Then you bring me over." He immediately acted shamelessly and said, "It's behind these rocks. If you go the wrong way, you'll have to start all over again. It's very troublesome. Are you sure you don't want me to bring you over? This restriction is very powerful, and its attack power is also quite strong." Lei Xingfeng said, "You just have to follow me. Don't be more than 1 meter away from me. Can you do that?" Fatty was puzzled and asked, "What do you mean?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Nothing. I just want you to not run around and follow me. You just have to be 1 meter away from me. Do you understand?" Fatty understood, but he was even more puzzled. He said, all right. Although I understand, I don't understand why you have to do this. I'll follow you. Everything else is your problem." Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "All right, let's go in." Fatty followed Lei Xingfeng into the restriction. He was still puzzled. What kind of restriction was this? He didn't even release his real body. What if he encountered an attack? With Lei Xingfeng's current strength, he could already cover 3 to 4 meters of space around him. In other words, as long as Fatty was within this range, he would be covered by his spatial skill. Just like Lei Xingfeng, he wouldn't touch the restriction nodes. In other words, he wouldn't trigger the restriction. Then, something that shocked Fatty happened. He followed Lei Xingfeng into the restriction, but the restriction didn't move at all. He couldn't help but ask when he was 100 meters away, "What's going on? I remember that there's a restriction here. Why is there no movement at all? Could it be that the restriction here has been completely destroyed? It doesn't seem like it. That's strange." Lei Xingfeng said, "The restriction here is still there. It's just that I don't want it to be activated." Fatty said in shock, How is this possible?" Lei Xingfeng said, "What's impossible? I'm a restriction grandmaster." Fatty's expression changed. He said, "Wow, restriction grandmaster. Wow, no wonder. Wow, you." Of course, he knew what kind of harvest a restriction grandmaster would bring in this place, where restrictions were everywhere. Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "No wonder I have so many top-grade stalagmites." Fatty nodded fiercely and said, Yes, I lost a lot." Lei Xingfeng said, "Don't be greedy. 3 top-grade stalagmites are quite a lot. Even if I want to find these stalagmites, it would be very difficult." Fatty said, "But it's still much easier than us." Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "This is the advantage of being proficient in restrictions." As they spoke, Lei Xingfeng led Fatty past the restriction. Fatty looked back and then looked at Lei Xingfeng. After a while, he said with emotion, "This is too damn easy. Sigh, is this the advantage of being a restriction grandmaster? It's too magical." Lei Xingfeng said, "How far are we?" Fatty said in a daze, "Not far. There are still 2 more restrictions to pass. Of course, with you, there won't be any problems." He originally wanted to extort Lei Xingfeng, but he didn't expect Lei Xingfeng to be a restriction grandmaster. Passing through restrictions, as if they were walking, was simply too shocking. Lei Xingfeng didn't want to delay and said, "Okay, I'll take you past the restriction." Fatty followed Lei Xingfeng listlessly. After walking for half an hour, they encountered another restriction. He said, "Pass through this restriction." Lei Xingfeng said, You just have to stay close. Don't go beyond a certain range, or you will trigger the restriction. Fatty couldn't figure out what method Lei Xingfeng used to pass through the restriction. It was as if the restriction was completely dead and didn't have any reaction. Furthermore, he didn't understand what Lei Xingfeng meant when he said to stay close. A restriction idiot wouldn't be able to understand this. Lei Xingfeng walked step by step. Under Fatty's numb expression, Lei Xingfeng passed through 2 restrictions consecutively. Then, Lei Xingfeng saw a huge pit. He said here. Actually, he already knew that it was here because there was a black stone at the bottom of the pit. Fatty nodded and said, yes. Lei Xingfeng jumped into the pit and began to dig. Pieces of black stone were dug out. There were so many of them that Lei Xingfeng was very surprised. Then, he discovered that there was thunder plasma below the black stone, followed by large thunder crystals. They were all large pieces of large thunder crystals, and there was no lack of high-quality ones. The Fatty stared blankly for a long time. When he saw the big thunder crystals being dug out, he was shocked. He didn't expect that there would be big thunder crystals under the black rock. Seeing that there were big thunder crystals, he shouted, half of it is mine. Lei Xingfeng said indifferently, it has nothing to do with you. I will give you the 3 top quality stalagmites, but the materials here have nothing to do with you. Fatty was furious. He suddenly released his true body and said, half for me. He didn't know how strong Lei Xingfeng was, so he didn't dare to say that he could chase away Lei Xingfeng. However, he felt that he had the strength to snatch half of it. Chapter 843. Lei Xingfeng smiled and stood up straight. Lei Yin flew out and revealed his real body. Even though he was standing at the bottom of the pit, he was still taller than Fatty. He lowered his head and asked, you mean you want to fight? Fatty never thought that Lei Xingfeng's real body would be so abnormal. He was actually so strong. There was no need to fight. Just that terrifying aura alone was enough to make him dizzy. He was extremely frightened. An instinctive fear filled his heart. He knew that his opponent was so strong that he didn't even have the chance to fight. He couldn't beat him. The Fatty instantly understood that he couldn't beat Exine Feng, and the difference between them wasn't small. It was like the difference between heaven and earth. If Exine Feng hadn't released his true body, then the Fatty wouldn't have understood. But with his true body, there was no hope. After all, he was a high-level practitioner. Many things didn't need to be said. As long as he felt it, he would understand. Fatty quickly retracted his real body and said seriously, no, we are here to trade, not to fight. Lei Xingfeng continued to stare at him and said, you said you want half? Fatty laughed. It's just a joke. A joke. Hee 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 hee. Lei Xingfeng nodded. So it's like this. All right, don't say such things in the future. It will cause misunderstandings. He retracted his real body and continued to dig. Fatty sat at the edge of the pit and panted. He was angered by Lei Xingfeng. He looked on helplessly as large pieces of large thunder crystals were absorbed into Lei Xingfeng's hidden Luan space. He was extremely regretful. Why didn't he dig it out? Because he couldn't use the black stone. His seal didn't have any reaction to the black stone. Because he saw traces of electricity on the black stone, he knew that it was a thunder-type material. He originally wanted to take a piece out to trade. If it was useful, he would come back to dig it out. But because he was greedy for the 3 stalagmites, he brought people here. He didn't expect there to be treasures underground. The Fatty was about to die from regret. He was panting heavily. His strength was inferior, so there was no point in regretting it. The other party used his fists and strength to tell him that if he regretted it, he would be beaten up. Moreover, he would be beaten up ruthlessly. He could only swallow this bitter fruit. Lei Xingfeng was so excited that he wanted to die. How could he have imagined that there would be so many big thunder crystals below? These were the best materials for nurturing thunder-type phase. Furthermore, the quantity and quality of these big thunder crystals were so good. It was no wonder that Lei Xingfeng had displayed his martial prowess and didn't want to let Fatty get his hands on them. Lei Xingfeng didn't hesitate to fight to occupy this place. He had already collected several hundred large thunder crystals. They were all foot-long crystals that were complete and pure. As for the thunder plasma, it was directly absorbed by Lei Yin. No matter how much of this there was, Lei wouldn't refuse it. Thus, Lei Xingfeng didn't need to worry about it. He only needed to worry about how many large thunder crystals he could excavate. Then, Lei Xingfeng discovered that the ink-black big thunder crystal was actually blue. Because it was an extremely deep blue, it looked like ink. If it was placed against light, one would be able to see traces of blue light. Supreme grade, big thunder crystal. Fatty was about to cry. There was no problem with exchanging one supreme grade big thunder crystal for one supreme grade stalagmite. In fact, he could even exchange for more. This was a huge loss. With red eyes and coarse breathing, Fatty shook his body impatiently. He was about to go crazy. He was looking at such a treasure with his own eyes, but he couldn't do anything about it. He really wanted to snatch it or kill Lei Xingfeng. At least he still had some rationality. When he thought about Lei Xingfeng's true body and his extremely powerful aura, Fatty knew that if he dared to make a move, Lei Xingfeng would definitely dare to kill him. Fatty's mouth let out involuntary moaning sounds. Unknowingly, he had already started to drool. Lei Xingfeng wasn't concentrating on digging. He still paid 30% of his attention to stare at Fatty. He knew in his heart that the reason Fatty was so well-behaved this time was because he was intimidated by him. Otherwise, a battle would be unavoidable. He didn't want to fight. If the shockwaves reached the bottom of the pit, all the treasures would be finished. This was also the reason why he didn't chase Fatty away. Gradually, grayish-white rocks appeared. Lei Xingfeng knew that he had dug to the bottom. Only then did he relax a little. He stood up and released his true body. Fatty was so frightened that he retreated. He shouted, You can't kill me. I don't want to fight anymore. Everything is yours. Everything is yours. He was scared to death. He had seen Lei Xingfeng's seal and knew that it was useless against him. But after seeing Lei Xingfeng's true body, he knew that he wasn't Lei Xingfeng's match. There was nowhere to run here, and the secret door couldn't be opened. If Lei Xingfeng wanted to kill him, there was no way he could escape. Lei Xingfeng said indifferently, Am I that bad? Fatty was stunned. He said, You don't want to kill me? Lei Xingfeng said, Nonsense. Why would I want to kill you? Fatty pointed at Lei Xingfeng's true body and said, Then why did you release your true body? Lei Xingfeng didn't say a word. He reached out and grabbed the ground. With a boom, he directly lifted the ground and said, I'm just digging around to see if I missed anything. Fatty's face was red. He was filled with hatred and joy. He didn't know what to say. After lifting the ground, Lei Xingfeng found some big thunder crystals. However, there weren't many left. He withdrew his true body and continued to tidy up. Then, he flew to the top of the pit and said, This is for you. Lei Xingfeng put down 10 top-quality stalagmites and said, This isn't a deal. It's compensation for you. If you want to hate me, then I'll accept it. Fatty didn't expect Lei Xingfeng to give him 10 top-quality stalagmites. Immediately, all of his annoyance disappeared. The value of these stalagmites was too great. Even if he got the big thunder crystals, he wouldn't be able to use them. How could they be better than stalagmites? 10 top-quality stalagmites were enough to compensate him for everything. Fatty finally cracked a smile. He realized that he was a little petty. He didn't expect Lei Xingfeng to be so good. One must know that not only could Lei Xingfeng dig up all of the materials on the ground, he could even refuse to give him the top-quality stalagmites. With Lei Xingfeng's strength, Fatty couldn't do anything about it. He definitely couldn't beat Lei Xingfeng. In the fantasy sky realm, once separated, who could find them? The high-level cultivators here were all masters of the world. If Lei Xingfeng didn't give them anything, they wouldn't even have the chance to retaliate. Fatty said, All right. He had nothing to say. To be able to do this, not only did Lei Xingfeng's promise work, but he also gave him compensation. This was something that even Fatty himself couldn't do. Lei Xingfeng sorted out the black stones he had obtained this time. There were more than 200 pieces of black stones of different sizes. The largest one was a meter square, and the smallest one was a foot long. There was also a lot of thunder liquid and plasma, all of which were directly absorbed by Lei. The key was the big thunder crystals. The big thunder crystals that he had obtained in the magnetic storm mountain range had already been used up. He didn't have any left. The only big thunder crystal that he had kept was the one that contained the thunder spirit in the last transaction. Although it wasn't top quality, it was still a large piece of fine quality. This time, not to mention the fine quality big thunder crystals, he had obtained 7 pieces of top quality big thunder crystals, and all of them were large pieces. In total, he had obtained more than 800 big thunder crystals of various sizes. He had really made a big profit this time. He was very grateful to Fatty. Although this guy had wanted to go back on his words and make a move, this was normal. No cultivator wouldn't be tempted by these things. However, these materials were too important to Lei Xingfeng. He had to show his strength and forcibly take them. However, he would still give compensation. Fatty put away the stalagmite and said, "Let's go back. Our transaction this time is considered complete." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "All right." Then he opened the secret door. This wasn't the secret door of the mirror realm, but his own secret door. Ever since Shao Kong entered Lei Yin's world, he found that his secret door could ignore restrictions. Fatty was shocked again. He said, "You can open the secret door here." In the end, he tested it and couldn't open it at all. He couldn't help but be stunned. Lei Xingfeng said, "Are you going or not? If not, I'll go back to the trading point first." Fatty said, "Yes, of course. Strange, why can't my secret door open?" The two returned to the trading point. The others were still there. In fact, the two had only been out for a few hours. Dudaku said, why are you so fast? Did you find it?" Lei Xingfeng said, "My luck is not bad. I found it." The others looked at Fatty enviously. This meant that he had obtained 3 top-quality stalagmites. They still didn't know that this guy had obtained 10 stalagmites. Fatty was considered smart. He didn't say the result of the transaction. The main reason was that he was too embarrassed at the edge of the pit. If he said it, he would be laughed at. Lei Xingfeng said, "Are you guys still trading?" Dudaku said, "Yes, they're all small things. There's also some information that can be traded." A cultivator said, "It's too difficult to coordinate. It would be best if there were stalagmites to trade. Everyone needs them. They can be used as items of equal value." Lei Xingfeng understood immediately. Stalagmites could be used as currency because everyone agreed. However, stalagmites were rare and not everyone had one. Moreover, there were too few high-level cultivators. It was impossible to use stalagmites as currency. However, according to everyone's needs, stalagmites could be exchanged for anything. Having a stalagmite was equivalent to having wealth. Dudaku stared at Fatty. After a while, he said, "Fatty, you keep smiling. Oh, did you take advantage of something?" Fatty said, "What? What advantage? Why don't I know about it?" When it was necessary to play dead, Fatty still did a good job. He had obtained 10 top-quality stalagmites. He would never tell anyone about it, even if he was beaten to death. Dudaku didn't believe him. He asked, "A phone, did Fatty do anything else along the way? This guy is very cunning. Don't be fooled by his fat and honest appearance. He is famous here. He is so shrewd that he doesn't seem like a cultivator." Fatty cried out, "Daku, you can't talk nonsense." Dudaku and the other cultivators laughed. It was as though this guy's character had been despised. Chapter 844. Although Fatty was shouting, he was actually very happy. No matter what, his harvest this time wasn't small. If he had dug out the big thunder crystals himself, he might be able to exchange them for stalagmites, but he definitely wouldn't be able to exchange them for top-grade stalagmites. Every cultivator wouldn't be so generous as to use top-grade stalagmites to exchange for things. Only people like Lei Xingfeng, who had obtained too many top-grade stalagmites, would take them out without a care. Therefore, Fatty didn't have any regrets as he said, "I am an honest person. I've always been honest." Dudaku laughed and said, I know. You're the most honest person, haha." Everyone ridiculed him for a while. Lei Xingfeng was also very satisfied in his heart. What were 10 top-grade stalagmites? This time, he had obtained a batch of top-grade big thunder crystals, which could be used to cultivate thunder phase. This was his most important task. How could using top-grade stalagmites to cultivate thunder phase be better than using top-grade big thunder crystals? Big thunder crystals were the best energy crystals with the thunder attribute. Moreover, a large amount of thunder plasma had been absorbed by Lei Yin. This thing was also a rare thing, so it couldn't be better to use it to nourish Lei Yin. As for the black stone, it was even more mystical. Although Lei Xingfeng couldn't name it, Lei Yin seemed to like it very much. He really absorbed as much as he could. Lei Xingfeng kept a portion and didn't let Lei Yin absorb all of it. He still wanted to study it. In addition, he also left some for Thunderstorm. This was already a habit. He would definitely give a Yi a portion of the good stuff. They were all thunder attribute cultivators, and thunder attribute materials were relatively rare. Thunderstorm didn't obtain as many as Lei Xingfeng. It was also thanks to Lei Xingfeng's help that Thunderstorm's materials were never lacking. This grandson of his valued two people the most. One was Ai Yi, and the other was his little sister. Everything was prioritized by them. The others were Wu Yong, Gucci, and the like. As long as there were materials that they needed, he would keep them. Everyone chatted and laughed for a while before dispersing. Lei Xingfeng sat alone and began to inspect his Lei Yin. This was his task before cultivation. As long as he had time, Lei Xingfeng would inspect and adjust Lei Yin. This thing was his life, the foundation of his cultivation. He couldn't ignore it. Lei Xingfeng absorbed a large amount of thunder-type materials and gradually underwent changes. These changes were reflected in Lei Yin's restrictions. Layers of restrictions were constantly being generated. There were many that Lei Xingfeng didn't recognize. He needed to learn and master them. After Lei Yin ate this batch of materials, thousands of restrictions were generated in a short period of time. They were all independent restrictions for the time being. However, as time passed, these restrictions would gradually fuse together and the range would gradually increase. During this period, if Lei Xingfeng didn't stop fighting, then Lei Yin's restrictions would gradually increase in attack power. Lei Xingfeng could only influence this kind of growth, but he couldn't control it. Once Lei Yin was formed, it would have its own path of growth. After Lei Xingfeng crushed the top-grade Great Thunder Crystal, he used the spatial shift to transfer the fragments into the Great Thunder Crystal where the Thunder Fei was. It was a hollow Great Thunder Crystal. It wasn't a top-grade Great Thunder Crystal, but a fine-grade Great Thunder Crystal. However, this Great Thunder Crystal had produced a Fei. When the crushed Great Thunder Crystal was transferred into the space where the Thunder Fei was, the Thunder Fei suddenly became extremely active. Moreover, it was rapidly growing. The fragments quickly turned into mist and were then absorbed by the flowers at the bottom of the space. Then they were converted into materials that the Thunder Fei needed and were absorbed by the Thunder Fei. In just a moment, Lei Xingfeng knew that it was done. The main thing was that when the flowers at the bottom stopped transforming and the Thunder Fei became lazy, he knew that it was done. In the future, as long as he fed it a little every day, the Thunder Fei would rapidly grow. Lei Yin had two key points. One was the Fei, Little Void. It was a space-type Fei, and its preciousness was self-evident. With Lei Xingfeng's knowledge, he didn't hesitate to take it into his Lei Yin, which showed how much importance he attached to it. The other key point was the Thunder Fei. Although it didn't have intelligence as the core of Lei Yin, Lei Xingfeng spared no effort in nurturing it. He gave it the best treasures and collected the best materials. The first thing that came to Lei Xingfeng's mind was the Thunder Fei. Once the Thunder Fei developed intelligence, the entire Lei Yin would be under its control. Now, he still needed to rely on Lei Xingfeng to control and coordinate the entire Lei Yin. The third Fei was the linked Lei Yin. This Fei's quality was inferior to the Thunder Fei. For the time being, Lei Xingfeng didn't care about it and only maintained its state. He didn't dare to fully nurture it. If it developed to be stronger than the Thunder Fei in his Lei Yin, it wouldn't be a good thing. His own Thunder Fei was the master, and the linked Lei Yin's Fei was considered a guest. The same went for the spatial Fei, Shao Kong. The guest must not be stronger than the master, or there would be problems. Lei Xingfeng took out a Lei Yin and played with it. This was one of the 7 Lei Yin. Lei Xingfeng looked at this Lei Yin with appreciation, especially the restrictions within it. He observed it very carefully. He had now developed a habit of playing with Lei Yin whenever he had nothing to do, including his own double Lei Yin. Every time he played with it, he would gain something. especially when he obtained the Lei Yin, which contained countless information. As his knowledge increased and his understanding of restrictions deepened, he could already see many secrets in the Lei Yin. Furthermore, he had now learned how to reverse the restrictions. From the formation mechanism of the restrictions, he could infer the owner's cultivation technique. Although he had only grasped the surface of reversing restrictions, he had gained a lot through reversing restrictions. Especially for his future cultivation, he had a clearer path to take. Every Lei Yin contained a Fei, which was produced by the Lei Yin itself and not from outside. Therefore, this Fei was relatively weak and required energy to ensure its production. Lei Xingfeng just crushed some big thunder crystals and threw them into the Lei Yin. He didn't use fine or supreme-grade big thunder crystals, but ordinary big thunder crystals. It was fine as long as it could be maintained. After waiting for more than 10 days, there were people who came to exchange materials. Lei Xingfeng would trade as long as the other party had thunder attribute or spatial attribute materials. In particular, the news of him having a lot of stalagmites had already spread in this region. As long as the experts came to the exchange point, they would come to him to exchange. Most of the time, they would specifically ask for stalagmites. In fact, the fantasy sky realm produced the most stalagmites. It was just that it was very difficult to obtain them, unless one was like Lei Xingfeng, who was proficient in restrictions and could collect a lot of stalagmites without touching the restrictions. By relying on stalagmites, Lei Xingfeng was able to collect a lot of thunder attribute and spatial attribute materials. Comparatively speaking, there were more thunder attribute materials and fewer spatial attribute materials. Spatial attribute materials were very rare to begin with. In addition, cultivators often relied on their seals to identify materials. Many of the spatial attribute materials were suspected by cultivators of other attributes, so they collected a few. When they traded, they would first take out these materials that they didn't need to use. This gave Lei Xingfeng the opportunity to obtain them, because he knew whether or not they were spatial attribute materials. He met a lot of experts here, but Lei Xingfeng didn't care. He didn't plan to continue interacting with them. Once he and Xingfeng went outside, they might not meet again for the rest of their lives. There was no need to get close to them. A few days later, Xingfeng finally arrived. When he saw Lei Xingfeng, he asked, "How long have you been waiting?" Xingfeng replied, "It's all right. It wasn't long. I managed to trade some materials here." Xingfeng nodded and said, "Are you ready?" Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "Of course I'm ready. Where do we set off?" While speaking, he looked at Xingfeng and found that this guy's aura was restrained. He should have completely stabilized the fire seal. His strength had obviously increased by leaps and bounds. Xingfeng said, "We're leaving now. If you still need time to deal with things, I can wait." Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "There's nothing to deal with." "Haha, congratulations. You finally got what you wanted." Xingfeng's face was full of smiles. He said, "I was lucky. I was lucky. You should know how difficult it was." In fact, Lei Xingfeng didn't have it as difficult as Xingfeng. Since he was directly connecting with someone else's seal and he was proficient in restrictions, the process was relatively simple. The materials and energy consumed were also less. Xingfeng was basically cultivating a new fire seal. The consumption was very frightening. It would be strange if it wasn't difficult. Xingfeng said, "Let's go." Then he opened the secret door. First, they had to leave the fantasy sky realm. Entering the fantasy sky realm was difficult, but exiting was easy. The two left the fantasy sky realm and returned to the big crack. Then, they opened the secret door again and left this area. Lei Xingfeng entered the secret door and looked back. This place could be considered his lucky place. It was here that he truly stepped into the ranks of advanced cultivators and reached the level of peak cultivators in one fell swoop. Moreover, his knowledge of restrictions was greatly improved here. He began to learn restrictions from the fire seal. Most importantly, Lei Xingfeng obtained the pagoda-shaped 7-story Lei Yin, which opened another cultivation method for him. Xingfeng also didn't expect that he would be able to find a companion to go to the outside world with. This greatly increased his confidence, especially since Xingfeng was not only a second true ring body, but also a master of restrictions. This was a great help to the two of them. They didn't know what they would encounter along the way, but both of them were peak experts. It just so happened that their confidence was bursting. They basically didn't have any fear. In any case, they would just charge forward until they reached the outside world. Along the way, they opened the secret door. About half a year later, they arrived at the edge of the starry sky. Here, the two unexpectedly discovered that there were traces of people on many continents. Xing Feng said, "The coordinates I obtained should be this continent. Only from here can we reach the outside world. But I don't know where to go. We need to search." Lei Xingfeng was speechless. After a while, he said, "This, you don't know?" Chapter 845. Xing Feng said awkwardly, "Back then, I wasn't very confident, so I didn't ask for more details. Well, let's look around first. There seems to be human cultivators here." Lei Xingfeng said, "All right, let's ask around and see if there are any cultivator sects here." Xing Feng nodded and said, "Yes, maybe there are humans from the outside world who set up a sect here. After all, this is a continent from the outside world. Maybe there are many clues." This was indeed a continent suitable for human growth. There are green mountains, green rivers, lush plants, and all kinds of animals. The whole continent was full of vitality. For Lei Xingfeng and Xing Feng, this place was very comfortable. Since most of the continents were barren on their way here, there were only deserts and bare mountains. Therefore, after entering this continent, the two of them felt refreshed. There were no restrictions on flying here, so the two of them flew into the sky. Looking down from the sky, the endless greenery and the rolling mountain range made them feel relaxed and happy. Xing Feng said, "This place is not bad. If cultivators from the outside world come here, they will probably appreciate it." Lei Xingfeng said, "There aren't many continents like this. Most of the places in the outer space are barren continents. Let alone plants. You can't even see a single animal. It's dead silent. It's rare to see such greenery, so it's really relaxing." Xing Feng looked around and pointed into the distance. "Feng, look over there." Lei Xingfeng's silver eyes flickered. He said, "It's actually a group of buildings. Could it be a cultivation sect?" Xing Feng said, "Sure enough, it looks like buildings. Let's go take a look. Maybe it's a cultivation sect. This way, we can find cultivators." The two of them quickly flew over. In just a few seconds, the two of them arrived above the group of buildings. Lei Xingfeng said, "It shouldn't be a cultivation sect." Xing Feng didn't understand. "Why?" Lei Xingfeng said, "There are no traces of restrictions. If it's a cultivation sect, I believe they would have already set up restrictions." Xing Feng nodded and said, "Yes, cultivation sects are indeed like this. No matter what, let's go down and take a look." The two of them fell from the sky and landed directly on the street. The people around them just glanced at them and didn't make a fuss. They seemed to be normal. Xing Feng and Lei Xingfeng immediately knew that there must be a lot of cultivators here. Otherwise, they wouldn't be so calm. The clothes of the people here were very different from Xian Feng and Xian Feng, but they didn't seem to find it strange. At most, they would take a glance before continuing with what they were doing. Occasionally, a few children would stare at them, but they were quickly dragged away by the adults. The two of them walked on the street. There were many people around them, but Xing Feng and Lei Xingfeng felt out of place. Probably because they had stayed in the wilderness for too long, they felt strange. In addition, they rarely communicated with others. The two of them exuded a murderous aura. They tried their best to restrain their aura, but the aura they released was still very scary. As they walked on the street and looked around, Lei Xingfeng said, "I hope a cultivator doesn't have eyes. Then we'll have a chance to ask." Xing Feng said, "That's strange. They're all ordinary people. Is this the base of some sex family?" Lei Xingfeng also felt strange. After they landed, they didn't seem to see anyone here. He thought that cultivators often came here, but until now, they hadn't seen a single cultivator. This was puzzling. If they asked ordinary people, the two of them knew that there was a huge difference between ordinary people and cultivators. It was impossible for ordinary people to know where cultivators were. But even so, Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but block the path of an old man and ask, "Excuse me, is there a cultivation sect here?" The old man plopped down on the ground and rolled his eyes. Lei Xingfeng was dumbfounded. He thought, "I was just asking for directions. I didn't do anything to you." Xingfeng pulled Lei Xingfeng and said, "Don't ask. If you open your mouth and speak, ordinary people won't be able to stand your aura." Lei Xingfeng took a few steps back. The old man struggled to get up. He didn't even look at Lei Xingfeng. He turned around and ran away. Although he wasn't young, he wasn't slow. The surrounding people had all scattered. In just a moment, the surrounding area was silent. There wasn't a single person in sight. Xingfeng couldn't help but laugh. He said, "Damn, he scared them all away. Forget it, let me do it." Lei Xingfeng rolled his eyes. Ever since he left his hometown, he had almost never interacted with ordinary people. He also didn't have any contact with ordinary people in secret sections. The low-level disciples were in charge of ordinary people's affairs. Therefore, he didn't expect things to turn out this way. He felt a little bitter. He didn't expect that he would cultivate to such a level. He couldn't even talk to ordinary people. Xingfeng flew into the air and shouted, "Who's in charge here? Come out." It was as if thunder had rolled across the sky, exploding. The whole world trembled. Xingfeng shouted a few times, but no one came out to answer. Soon, Xingfeng landed and said, There shouldn't be any cultivators here. It's strange. Forget it. Let's follow the path." The two didn't stop. They followed the path on the ground and flew in the direction of the path. After flying for a few hours, Lei Xingfeng saw a building. At the same time, he also saw traces of a restriction. He said, "Ha, we're here. There must be a restriction here. The restriction has been destroyed." When they got closer, they saw that the entire sect was destroyed. The building had collapsed, and there were huge footprints on the ground. There were also traces of palms hitting the ground. They could see it clearly from the sky. Xingfeng and Lei Xingfeng looked at each other. They didn't know what to say. Lei Xingfeng said, "What a coincidence. Look at the traces. They're all new." Xingfeng said, "It can't be more than half a year ago. These traces were left behind in half a year." Lei Xingfeng said, "There were more than 2 people attacking, and their strength was around the level of a beginner to intermediate monarch king. Was this a sect annihilation?" Xingfeng said, "Unlucky. Forget it. Let's continue looking. I didn't expect the cultivators here to fight so fiercely." Lei Xingfeng said, "We seem to have gotten into trouble." Xingfeng said, "What? What do you mean?" Then they saw 2 people rushing out of the ruined building and flying into the sky. Xingfeng said, "We've really gotten into trouble. Ha! There's finally someone." Lei Xingfeng laughed too. They weren't afraid of trouble. With their strength, they weren't afraid of the other party at all. As elite cultivators, there shouldn't be anyone who could threaten them in this world of outer space. When the 2 people flew up and saw the 2 laughing people, they couldn't help but hesitate. Both of them had a ferocious appearance. One had a red beard while the other had a ferocious face. Either way, it didn't look good. According to Xian Feng, they were obviously bad people, but whether they were bad people or not, that didn't matter. The 2 of them stared at Xingfeng and Lei Xingfeng. Xingfeng said happily, "What are you looking at? What's there to look at?" Ha! He couldn't help but laugh. It was really like someone giving him a pillow when he was sleepy. Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's go down and talk." The 4 of them landed. In midair, if they released their true bodies to fight, they would still land. Therefore, standing on the ground was a battle stance. After standing firm, Redbeard asked, "Who are you people?" Xingfeng's laughter made his hair stand, so he didn't dare to be rude and asked first. The other person was ready to release his true body. From his posture, it looked like he was ready to fight. Lei Xingfeng had seen this many times. In fact, he himself was in a similar posture, ready to fight at any time. In an unfamiliar place, it was best to be careful, even if he knew he was stronger than them. Xingfeng laughed. "We're here to look for someone." Redbeard immediately became alert. He said, "Who are you looking for?" Xingfeng said, "Anyone will do. For example, you." Redbeard's face was full of surprise. He pointed at his nose and said, "Looking for me? But I don't know you." Xingfeng said, I don't need to know you. I'm looking for you to ask for directions. I want to go to a place, but I don't know how to get there. I can only ask a local. Redbeard's face darkened. He said, Are you messing with me? The fierce-looking guy stared with his bell-like eyes and said, Are you here for revenge? Lei Xingfeng said impatiently. Revenge? I don't even know you. Revenge my ass. Are you out of your mind? It was like a chicken talking to a duck. Xingfeng and Lei Xingfeng were talking about their own matters, and the other party was also talking about their own matters. Redbeard said, How dare you mess with me? You're courting death. The fierce-looking guy stared and said, Are you saying my mind is out of my mind? Courting death. Both of them said courting death. So Xingfeng and Lei Xingfeng had to release their true bodies and prepare to fight. There was no misunderstanding in these words. They were going to fight. Sure enough, when Redbeard and Lei Xingfeng released their true bodies, they found that the other party had also released their true bodies. However, their true bodies were terrifying. Not only were they taller and stronger, but their aura was also very different. Redbeard and Lei Xingfeng were far inferior. Xingfeng said, Feng, don't fight. Let me. I finally found someone to fight. Ha! It wasn't that he liked to fight, but he had just formed his second true ring body. No matter what, he had to test his power. These two had become targets. It wouldn't be too late to ask for directions after the fight. Lei Xingfeng said, Okay. He also understood Xingfeng's meaning. It was the same as when he had first formed his second true ring body. He needed to adapt, and the method was to fight. Only by fighting could he adjust his true body. Xingfeng laughed and said, Do you want to fight together, or one by one? Redbeard and Lei Xingfeng tasted bitterness in their mouths. They didn't expect to meet two peak experts. With one look, they knew that these two were much stronger. How could they fight? However, they couldn't retreat now. They could only brace themselves and fight. The two didn't dare to fight one by one. Of course, they would fight together. If they fought one by one, they knew they would lose. If they fought together, they might have a chance. Chapter 846. Just in terms of height, as long as one reached the Tao Saint level, the height of their true body would definitely exceed 200 meters. Of course, if the seal was not refined well, then the true body would need to be 180 to 190 meters tall. Xingfeng barely passed the mark, which was 200 meters. Perhaps it would be slightly higher or lower. Based on Lei Xingfeng's visual estimation, the difference would not be more than 2 meters. In other words, Xingfeng barely passed the mark. Of course, as one cultivated and used various materials, and as one seal grew, one's true body would be slightly taller. What Lei Xingfeng did not know was that the height of the second true ring body was roughly the limit of the true body's height. Even if one cultivated to the 9th true ring body, the height of their true body would not exceed 300 meters. For someone like Lei Xingfeng, who had reached 220 meters, it meant that his seal was extremely powerful. Thus, the true body that he displayed would also be extremely powerful. Therefore, when Xingfeng displayed his true body, Redbeard and his companion were both shocked. They immediately understood that this person was much stronger than them. If the two of them attacked together, they might have a chance. If they fought alone, they would definitely lose. That was what the two of them thought, and that was how they attacked. They both threw out a punch at the same time and used all their strength. The two of them did not think that they would be able to injure Xingfeng. They only wanted to fight to a draw so that they could speak. At the very least, they would be able to show that they were qualified to speak. Xingfeng's true body suddenly emitted layers of flames. Then he roared, Good. Fight! Fight! They exchanged 2 punches, which meant that it was fist against fist. Xingfeng's true body was huge, and each of his fists was also huge. Therefore, it was easy for them to exchange punches. Xingfeng intentionally did this so that he could test how much his strength had increased after reaching the Tao Saint level. Boom! A boom! The red-bearded man couldn't help but cry out in pain. This punch had directly shattered his fist. His companion was slightly better off because Xingfeng had focused all of his attention on him. The power of this attack was extraordinary, so he naturally couldn't withstand it. The second punch was a bit weaker, allowing the fierce-looking man to escape. Redbeard's fist directly collapsed. As he tried his best to resist, it collapsed all the way to his shoulder. He frantically poured out energy from the seal and stabilized his true body. This punch had consumed a third of the seal's energy. By the time he stabilized his true body, the entire seal began to weaken. It had consumed a great deal of energy. Redbeard's entire body was in a bad state. What a joke. His opponent had only punched him once, and he had nearly died. The fierce-looking man continuously retreated. Although this punch did not cause his true body to collapse, it had consumed a large amount of energy, making it difficult for his seal to continue. Xingfeng shouted, "Good, not bad. You can take on my punches. Come again." Just the words again made their faces turn green. What's the point again? They couldn't even take one more punch. One more punch would kill them. The two of them stepped back at the same time. The red-bearded man immediately admitted defeat and shouted, "Stop, stop. It's a misunderstanding." Xingfeng was instantly furious. He had only tasted a little bit and wanted to test his strength more. But his opponent had admitted defeat. He shouted, "Fight with me. Otherwise, I'll beat you to death." What did it mean to be unreasonable? This was what it meant to be unreasonable. The red-bearded man knew that he was in big trouble. He had only fought for a short while, but he was very clear that even if the two of them fought with their lives on the line, they wouldn't be able to win. He had thought that there was a glimmer of hope, but now it seemed like a joke. Let alone a glimmer of hope. It could be said that there was no chance at all. If they really fought with their lives on the line, the ones who would die would definitely be the two of them. Moreover, there was a guy on the opposite side who was eyeing them covetously. This person's strength was even higher than Xingfeng's. The red-bearded man said, "We admit defeat. We won't fight. We really won't fight." Xingfeng was so angry that his teeth were itching. He rushed forward and shouted, "You say we'll fight, and you say we won't fight. Is there such a good thing in this world? Watch out for my fist." The red-bearded man and his companion didn't dare to fight back. The two of them turned around and ran. Then, they saw Lei Xingfeng's huge body blocking their path at an incredible speed. It was impossible for them to run. Lei Xingfeng still wanted to understand the situation. If they ran away, he wouldn't be able to ask anything. Xingfeng chased with all his strength, but he couldn't do anything about the speed of his real body. If he didn't have a special cultivation technique, his real body's movements would be too slow. He couldn't catch up. Lei Xingfeng could catch up, but he didn't want to fight with Xingfeng. He just blocked their path and wouldn't make a move for the time being. They chased for a full 10 minutes, but the other party didn't fight back. They desperately dodged and shouted as they dodged, "We admit defeat. Stop fighting. We don't have any grudges." Xingfeng stood on the ground and supported his thighs with his hands. He didn't use much energy during the fight, but he used up a lot of energy while chasing. Of course, he used less energy than the other two. Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "Forget it. They don't even dare to take a punch from you. There's no point in fighting like this." The red-bearded man said, "That's right, that's right. Bullying the weak isn't the style of an expert." Lei Xingfeng wanted to beat him up. He said, "Shut up and retract your real body." This meant that he wanted the other party to disarm. The red-bearded man and his companion hesitated. Lei Xingfeng sneered and said, "Do you think you can save your life by retracting your real body? It's easy to kill you. Do you think you can escape if the two of us attack together?" Xingfeng knew that they couldn't fight, unless he wanted to kill the two of them. However, he didn't plan to do so. After all, he didn't have any grudges. He wouldn't kill them just to ask for directions. He wasn't that crazy. The red-bearded man and his companion retracted their real bodies obediently. Lei Xingfeng also retracted his real body. Xingfeng shook his head and said, "Boring." He then retracted his real body. Lei Xingfeng looked at the two of them and laughed. The red-bearded man and his companions' faces were covered in sweat. They were really bruised. It wasn't because they were beaten, but because they were scared. Xingfeng said, "Who said? I'm looking for death?" The red-bearded man wanted to cry. He and his companion had said it before. Now it seemed that they weren't talking about Xingfeng. They were saying that he was looking for death. He lowered his voice and said, "Senior, I'm sorry. I was rude." The fierce-looking man also apologized. The two of them knew that Xing Feng and Lei Xingfeng might really be passing by. With their strength, there was no need for them to lie. Exine Feng sighed his heart. This was the use of strength. No matter what, he could beat you into submission before speaking. Everyone would be polite. If he didn't have strength, the two of them would be in danger. The other party didn't have the same attitude as him. Xing Feng didn't ask why the two of them were here, nor did he ask about this sect. This matter had nothing to do with him. What he wanted to know was the way to the outside world. The red-bearded man and his companion looked at Xing Feng nervously. They also didn't know what these two super experts were doing here. If they were related to the sects here, it would be really troublesome. Since they couldn't continue fighting, Xing Feng calmed down and said, "Let's find a place to sit. I have something to ask you." The red-bearded man nodded and said, "Okay. Senior, please." Since he was a senior, the embarrassing incident of him almost being beaten out of his pants wasn't a big deal. He was a senior expert. It was normal for him to lose. Therefore, his attitude changed completely. He was respectful and polite. Xing Feng didn't want to get close to the red-bearded man. He just wanted to ask for directions. He said, "Is there a way to the outside world on this continent?" The red-bearded man was stunned. He said, there is, but no one dares to walk on it." Xing Feng was overjoyed. As long as there was a way, it was fine. As for whether they could walk on it or not, that was another matter. What he knew was that if one wasn't a Tao saint, one could forget about walking on that path. Otherwise, he wouldn't have been so persistent. Lei Xingfeng said, "Where is it?" The red-bearded man said, "In the west, this direction. You can reach it if you keep walking." Xing Feng wouldn't walk on his own. He said, "Can your secret door reach there?" The red-bearded man hesitated and said, "It can, but it will consume a lot of energy." Lei Xingfeng didn't say anything. He threw out a crystal that had been stripped of its stone shell and said, "Is this enough?" The red-bearded man had probably never seen such a crystal in his life. He held the crystal and felt his seal throbbing crazily. It was a seal expressing its need. It was a restless feeling. This stalagmite was just an ordinary stalagmite. It couldn't even be considered a high-quality stalagmite. The red-bearded man's seal was also throbbing. He reached out to grab the crystal and said, "Give it to me. I will bring the two seniors over." The red-bearded man reacted quickly. Before his companion could grab the crystal, he had already put it into his hidden Luan space. He said, "Of course I will bring it over. You stay here first. I will bring the two seniors over. I will find you when I return." The fierce-looking fellow revealed an extremely disappointed expression. However, after thinking about it, he decided to let it go. He really couldn't win against his senior brother. His strength was just a bit lower than his senior brother's. He sighed and said, "All right, I'll wait here." Just as Xing Feng and Lei Xingfeng were about to leave, more than 10 people descended from the sky and surrounded the four of them. One of the cultivators even released his true body and tore down the pavilion that the four of them were in. Lei Xingfeng shook his body slightly, and the dust and stones that fell were flicked to the side. He smiled bitterly and said, "Old Xing, there's trouble again. I find it strange. If we don't come, they won't come. But when we come, they appear. What bad luck." Xing Feng said, "Hey, what did you do to make them chase you all the way here to kill you?" The red-bearded man said, "This isn't our home. This is their home." He released his true body. His companion did the same. Lei Xingfeng said, "Old Xing, what do we do?" Xing Feng said, "Good, I haven't had enough yet. There's so many people here. Let's play." Lei Xingfeng said, "This has nothing to do with us. Why are we interfering?" Chapter 847. Xing Feng said, "Who cares if we don't fight? That would be too humiliating." As he spoke, he also released his true body. Redbeard was overjoyed. He knew Xing Feng's strength and said, "Thanks." Lei Xingfeng said unhappily, "Why are you thanking me?" He could only release his true body. Otherwise, it would not be fun if he was affected. His true body was not as strong as his true body. He had to release his true body to defend himself. Fortunately, His true body did not consume much energy. When the two super huge true bodies appeared, it scared the people who came, especially Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng, who were unfamiliar faces. They knew they were not locals, and the people who came were hesitant. Everyone released their true bodies. Xian Feng was happy upon seeing this. It was obvious that these people were targeting Redbeard and Redbeard, as the other side had 4 monarch-level experts. It was obvious that it was a 2 versus 1 situation. The others were all down monarch-level experts. Their true bodies weren't much of a threat. Although they had a lot of people, but these down monarchs added together could probably tie down a beginner monarch. They might not be able to defeat Xian Feng. Xing Feng said, "Who's first?" Lei Xingfeng was speechless. He said, "Old Xing, forget it. Let them fight. Why are you joining in the fun?" Xing Feng laughed and said, "Hee hee, this is a rare opportunity, a rare opportunity." Redbeard was originally a little scared, but when he saw Xing Feng's enthusiasm, he was instantly filled with confidence. The 4 monarch-level experts were also scared. They could all see that Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng were not to be trifled with. One of them stepped forward and said, "Senior, please don't interfere in our fight." Xingfeng said unreasonably, "But I want to fight." Lei Xingfeng could only hug his head. This guy was not normal today. He looked like he could not endure it. This was the first time he saw Xingfeng so impatient. Actually, Xingfeng also had his own difficulties. Only by fighting could he adjust his fire seal. Because his strength had reached the peak, no one dared to fight him. Thus, when he saw an opportunity, he hurriedly jumped out to stir up trouble. Lei Xingfeng said, all right. If you want to play, then play. Don't play them to death." The two of them acted as though there was no one around them, causing the 4 Emperor Stage martial artists to jump in anger. One must know that Emperor Stage martial artists were the peak of existence here. Who dared to ignore them? Who dared to be rude? He had long developed a proud and arrogant personality. If he could still hold himself back after hearing such words, then he wouldn't be an expert. The 4 of them charged at Xingfeng at the same time. Lei Xingfeng laughed heartily as he walked forward. Redbeard and his companions were stunned. Lei Xingfeng sighed, "These idiots." If you don't make a move, Xingfeng might feel a little embarrassed. After all, he was the one who provoked you. But once you make a move, Xingfeng can do whatever he wants. Boom, 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 boom. Xingfeng received 2 punches. This was a fist against a fist. At the same time, his real body also received 2 punches. The result was the same. The 4 Emperor Stage martial artists retreated continuously. The result of receiving punches was that the real body's arm broke, while the person who attacked his real body didn't break his arm, but his fist broke. With such an attack, Xingfeng shouted, "Well done." Hearing this, everyone felt a chill. Actually, he was really saying, "Well done," because this attack gave him a chance to adjust his fire seal. Lei Xingfeng understood, but the others were shocked. For Emperor Stage martial artists attacked him with all their might, but not only was he fine, he even shouted, "Well done." Who wouldn't be afraid? Xingfeng took a step forward, scaring the group of martial artists. How could they still fight? Everyone saw clearly that when their punches hit Xingfeng, nothing happened to him. Their own fists broke first. The difference was obvious, and they weren't blind. They weren't even on the same level as Xingfeng. Since they couldn't fight, they could only hide. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but laugh. He knew what Xingfeng wanted, but the people here were no match for him. It was too difficult to fight them. No one was stupid enough to continue fighting. That wasn't a fight. It was purely seeking death. The difference in level between Emperor level and Tao Saint level was like the difference between heaven and earth. Tao Saint level was already on another level, especially when it came to the strength of the true body. It was unattainable. Emperor level cultivators could only look at it and sigh. Xingfeng chased for a few steps before he reacted. He knew that it was useless to continue. Lei Xingfeng shouted, "Old Xing, forget it. Don't fight anymore." The group of martial artists looked at Xingfeng in shock. Seeing him slow down and return to Lei Xingfeng's side, they heard him say, "What a disappointment. Fighting isn't fun." Lei Xingfeng said, "Forget it. I'll fight with you when I'm free." Xingfeng said, "That's all I can do. With others, I don't think I can fight for now. The people around felt like vomiting blood when they heard this. They were all despised. Xing Feng clapped his huge hands, making a loud clapping sound. He said, "All right, you guys continue. I'll watch the show. Since I can't fight, you guys can fight. Also, I still need this Redbeard. Don't break him." The group of martial artists felt like vomiting blood. How were they supposed to fight? Redbeard was overjoyed. He was also feeling uneasy. He didn't expect the opponents to bring so many experts. He didn't know if they could deal with 4 against 2. However, with Xing Feng's words, the opponents wouldn't dare to act recklessly. If there was a mistake and Xing Feng flipped out, it would be fun. The group of martial artists weighed the pros and cons for a long time. In the end, it didn't fight. Instead, they turned around and left. One of them pointed at Redbeard and said, "Don't be too happy. We'll definitely meet again." Redbeard laughed and said, "All right, I'll wait for you." The group of martial artists didn't say anything. They flew into the air and left quickly. After the group of martial artists left, Redbeard's face darkened. He said, "So what if you have more people?" "Very well. It's not like I don't have people." Xing Feng and Lei Xingfeng both withdrew their true forms. Xing Feng said, "Hey, Redbeard, get ready to go." Redbeard withdrew his true form and said, "Yes, senior." In front of Xing Feng, he was still very obedient. He didn't dare to play any tricks. He saw it clearly just now. The 4 of them surrounded and attacked each other. In the end, they were all scared away. Lei Xingfeng also said, "Let's go, let's go." Redbeard opened the secret door. Xing Feng and Lei Xingfeng walked in. Redbeard was the last. As for his companion, he also opened the secret door and left. They couldn't stay in this place to avoid being surrounded. The secret door opened in midair. After leaving the secret door, Lei Xingfeng was caught off guard and fell straight down. After pausing for a moment, Lei Xingfeng flew up. Xing Feng also did the same. Redbeard didn't come over. After sending the 2 of them out, he immediately closed the secret door and reopened it to leave. In truth, he was very afraid of these 2. Xing Feng and Lei Xingfeng floated in the air. Xing Feng said, "That guy didn't come over." Lei Xingfeng said, "Isn't that normal? If it were me, I would do the same." Xing Feng laughed and said, scared, "Ha, all right, I just advanced. It's hard to not get carried away." "Ha ha." Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly and said, "You're not being carried away. You're being carried away." Xing Feng said, "Is it that crazy?" Lei Xingfeng nodded vigorously and said, "That's right. It's that crazy. One person chasing after a group of people to fight." Xing Feng said, "I'm just anxious." Lei Xingfeng said, "Forget it. It's not a big deal to be a little crazy. Let's go down." "Wait, why did he place the secret door in midair?" Xing Feng said curiously, "Yeah, could it be that the passage is in midair?" Lei Xingfeng said, "That's impossible. It's hard to say." He didn't dare to be sure. Thinking about the existence of the heavenly moat, he still couldn't figure out how it appeared. In any case, the possibility of it being built was close to 0. It was impossible. With his 2 lives of experience, it was impossible to build a heavenly moat. Xing Feng said, "Let's search first." There was a thin layer of fog here. They could see about 100 meters away. They couldn't see anything on the ground. It was a vast expanse of white. There were some obscure shadows, but they didn't know what they were. They flew in a circle, looking for any clues. However, the 2 didn't find anything different. It was still a vast expanse of white. They couldn't see anything special. Xing Feng slapped his head and said, "Is this guy playing with us?" Lei Xingfeng said, "He wouldn't dare." Xing Feng said, "I think so too. He probably wouldn't dare. But where's the path?" Xing Feng said, "Since there's no path in the sky, let's go down." Lei Xingfeng was also a bit dumbfounded. He suddenly realized and said, "Yes, let's go down. Maybe it's down there." The 2 searched in the air for a long time, but they didn't find anything. Then they descended. Lei Xingfeng and Xing Feng were surprised to find that the distance was shockingly long. It was as if they couldn't find the ground. Lei Xingfeng's eyes even emitted a silver light to help him see if it was a change caused by the restriction. In the end, they didn't see anything. This situation was very rare. According to Lei Xingfeng's estimation, they had fallen for more than 10 minutes. This was very scary. At this time, Lei Xingfeng realized that the gray haze he saw before was actually a large amount of smoke floating in the air. A strong smell of sulfur assailed his nostrils. Was there a volcano below? Lei Xingfeng then saw a steaming hot current rushing upwards. It formed a hot wind that whistled past him. Xingfeng said, "It's a very familiar feeling." Lei Xingfeng knew this guy was of the fire element. He said, "I wonder what's down there. Maybe it's a volcano." Xingfeng said, "I don't know. You'll understand when you see it." Then, the two of them saw the floating flames forming a huge sea of fire. Lei Xingfeng said, "Wow, a sea of fire." Xingfeng said, "What a rare place." The two of them quickly approached the sea of fire. This sea of fire was very special. Flames floated in the air. They weren't red in color, but faint shadows. They were translucent. As the heat rose, the shape of the flames was revealed. Lei Xingfeng said in surprise, "Invisible fire." Xingfeng was pleasantly surprised. "There's such a good thing." Then, he released his fire seal. Lei Xingfeng also released his Lei Yin. Then, an extremely spectacular scene appeared. Chapter 848. Xingfeng's fire seal was like a monster's mouth. Countless flames gathered like a school of fish and were crazily sucked into the fire seal. When the flames met, they rapidly formed a larger flame. It was like a rolling snowball. By the time it reached the fire seal, it had already formed a huge stream of fire. What puzzled Xingfeng the most was that Lei Xingfeng's Lei Yin was also absorbing a large amount of flames. He was extremely curious. Wasn't this Lei Yin? When did it become a fire seal? Lei Xingfeng seemed to see Xingfeng's confusion. He said, "Who said Lei Yin can't absorb flames? I also need flames." Xingfeng asked why. Lei Xingfeng laughed and said, "Because I need them. Why else?" In fact, he himself couldn't explain it. He needed some time to figure it out. This absorption of flames wasn't something he had planned. It was Lei Yin's movement. It seemed like he wanted to absorb something, so he released it. Moreover, Lei Yin started to absorb a large amount of flames as soon as he appeared. His momentum was actually not inferior to Xingfeng's. However, in less than a minute, the amount of flames he absorbed was obviously much less. Compared to Xingfeng, the two were no longer on the same level. Xingfeng also saw the difference between the two, so he didn't continue asking. Instead, he continued to absorb flames. At the same time, the two of them slowly descended. Soon, Lei Xingfeng discovered the difference between him and Xingfeng. He seemed to be absorbing flames differently. Lei Yin was absorbing flames selectively. Then, he formed a fire-type restriction on Lei Yin. However, the formation of fire-type restrictions was relatively slow and the number was relatively small. However, he also understood that if he formed a large number of fire-type restrictions, it wouldn't be good for Lei Yin. Since Lei Yin needed it, Lei Xingfeng naturally wouldn't stop him. The flames floated towards Lei Yin and were then absorbed. Gradually, Lei Xingfeng discovered that Lei Yin's absorption speed was so slow that it took 1 to 2 to 3 seconds to absorb a flame. The speed at which Xingfeng absorbed the flames was even more frightening. The torrent of flames directly poured into the fire seal. Xingfeng's expression was very excited. It could be seen that he was very surprised and happy. According to Xingfeng's guess, absorbing flames at such a speed meant that the seal in his fire seal was quickly forming on a large scale, or else it wouldn't be able to absorb so many flames. Finally, Lei Xingfeng's Lei Yin stopped absorbing the flames. Only then did he put away Lei Yin and carefully observe the changes in Lei Yin. Less than 1,000 fire restrictions had been formed. They were very simple fire restrictions, which were formed by relying on space restrictions. They had nothing to do with his lightning restrictions, but they could be used together with lightning restrictions. This was the benefit of space restrictions. In the future, his Lei Yin would also be able to absorb fire attribute materials. These fire attribute materials would allow the fire restrictions in Lei Yin to grow. Gradually, Lei Xingfeng understood that a single restriction wasn't perfect. It needed other restrictions to balance it out. This way, the lei-yin would be truly powerful. When the fire restrictions were formed and started to grow, he could clearly feel the difference. Soon, Xingfeng also stopped absorbing. The flames in this area had been swept away. There were still flames floating in the distance, but the nearby flames had completely disappeared. One could imagine how many flames he had absorbed. Lei Xingfeng also had a lot of fire attribute materials in his hands. They were left for the secret sect. However, he could also use them now. Therefore, some of the fire attribute materials were thrown in a lei-yin. Sure enough, once the fire attribute materials were thrown into the lightning stamp, they were immediately absorbed by the fire attribute restrictions. These fire attribute restrictions began to grow. From his simplest fire attribute restrictions, they began to become more and more complex. Moreover, they began to combine with the space attribute restrictions. Xingfeng approached Lei Xingfeng and said with a smile, "You are really strange. You can even absorb flames. Tell me, what is going on?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I don't know why either. However, my lei-yin has started to form fire restrictions." Xingfeng was stunned. He said, "What? What do you mean?" Lei Xingfeng spread out his hands and said, "I don't understand it yet. However, I have a little clue. I feel that after the fire restrictions appeared, lei-yin has become a little different. I still need time to observe it. Perhaps it is not a bad thing to have some fire restrictions." Xingfeng pondered for a moment and said, "How many fire restrictions have been formed?" Lei Xingfeng said with a smile, "Compared to my own restrictions, there are very few. There are less than 1,000 of them. It is almost negligible." Xingfeng said, "Is that so? Well, let's see what changes there are. It will take time to test it." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "That's right. It will take time to test it." This was a new attempt, an attempt to modify the lightning stamp. Sometimes, an accidental discovery would lead to the formation of a new stamp technique. Soon, the two of them saw the ground. Sure enough, this place was full of volcanic craters. Countless volcanic craters spewed out large amounts of lava. Strange flames were produced from these craters. Many of them flew into the air along with the lava, forming strange balls of flames. Xingfeng said, "Oh my God, this is a treasure land for us to cultivate." Lei Xingfeng said, "You could try using the fire seal. Perhaps you can absorb a lot of good things." Xingfeng said, "If you want to stand here, you need to use your true body. Otherwise, your true body won't be able to withstand it. Even if I'm a fire elemental, I won't be able to withstand it." The temperature of the ground was extremely high. Not to mention humans, even cultivators wouldn't be able to withstand it. Even if the two of them were Tao saints, they still wouldn't be able to withstand it. As they got closer and closer to the ground, the heat hit their bodies. In just a moment, Lei Xingfeng was already sweating profusely. He knew that his body wouldn't be able to withstand it. In an instant, Lei-yin flew out and his true body appeared. Then, his true body smashed down like a heavy weight. Boom! Boom! With two loud bangs, the two huge true bodies landed on the ground, creating two huge craters. Magma immediately surged up, instantly submerging them up to their knees. The main body was in the chest of the true body. Once the true body was released, the main body's senses would shift to the true body. Other than the fact that the body was huge, it felt no different from the main body. After one's cultivation reached the Tao Saint realm, the main body and the true body had almost merged into one. Lei Xingfeng looked down and saw that both his feet had sunk into the ground. Flames and lava were spurting out from his knees. He could feel the terrifying heat. If not for the protection of his true body, his main body would have been burned to ashes. He used a bit of strength and pulled out one of his legs. He took a step forward. Luckily, he didn't sink into the ground this time. He successfully stood on the ground, but the ground was filled with lava. Xingfeng said, "We were too careless. We should have asked clearly from the start. I didn't expect the situation to be so complicated." Lei Xingfeng said, "That doesn't matter. The main thing is that we need to figure out how to get out." Xingfeng said, don't worry. It has been too long, and I have forgotten some things. I need some time to recall them." Lei Xingfeng asked curiously, "You are recalling them? Have you been here before?" That can't be right. If you have been here before, then you don't need to force Redbeard. Xingfeng said, someone told me how to get out of here before. It has been too long, so I can't remember. Don't worry, let's walk forward and take a look. Lei Xingfeng said, all right, then let's hurry. This isn't a place where humans can stay. The temperature of the lava was so high that it far exceeded Lei Xingfeng's imagination. Even he had to expend a certain amount of energy to resist it. If not for the fact that his new true body could reduce the consumption of energy, he probably wouldn't be able to endure it. If an expert who hadn't reached the Tao Saint level walked this path, the amount of energy consumed every minute would make them cry. Once their energy was used up, they wouldn't have any hope of surviving. It was the same for fire elemental cultivators. Their bodies couldn't withstand such high temperatures. The temperature here was enough to burn the air. The two of them trudged forward. Along the way, Xingfeng would occasionally use the fire seal to absorb some fire elemental materials. There were many good things hidden here. Even Lei Xingfeng was the same. His Leiyin could also absorb some fire elemental materials, especially high-grade ones. As they walked, they plundered everything. Because both of them had two true ring bodies, their energy usage was endless. For the time being, their true bodies wouldn't collapse because of the excessive consumption of energy. After walking for about 2 days, they saw a lava lake. It was really boundless. On the lava lake, there were a few black reefs. These reefs also emitted a red glow. Lei Xingfeng said, there's no way out? The rocks have melted. Both of their feet had sunk into the ground, just below the soles of their feet. Because of their huge, true bodies, the heat wave that rose to their shoulders was more or less enough. This meant that the hottest and most terrifying area was about 180 meters. This was the area that was truly unbearable. Their 200-meter-tall true bodies could withstand the heat. Lei Xingfeng pointed at the lava lake and said, do we have to wade through it? That's too scary. Xingfeng said, I don't know. Let's walk along the edge. Lei Xingfeng said, okay, let's walk and see. The two of them didn't have any confidence. The environment here was too harsh. Xingfeng said, okay. The two of them walked around the lava lake. Along the way, they saw quite a few good fire elemental materials. This way, the two of them didn't find the path difficult. At least they didn't have to suffer. There were materials to collect, which was a good thing for cultivators. When they saw a huge stone pillar, Xingfeng slapped his head and said, it's here. Haha, I remember now. Xian Feng glanced at the stone pillar. Only then did he notice how big it was, with a diameter of a few hundred meters and a height of a few thousand meters. It was like a gigantic stone stick stuck into the ground, incomparably eye-catching. Xingfeng looked up and said, we have to go to the top. Lei Xingfeng was stunned and said, we have to fly up. Xingfeng said, climb up. Lei Xingfeng said, don't talk nonsense. It's so high. Climb up? How? Chapter 849. Xingfeng said, I don't know, but I do know that we have to climb up. Xian Feng raised his head to look at the gigantic stone pillar, not knowing what to do. He wasn't a lizard. How could he climb up, especially since this thing was extremely thick, and the worst part was that the stone walls were extremely smooth. All right, you go first. I want to see how you're going to climb up. There was still some distance to the stone pillar, but Lei Xingfeng could already see most of it clearly. He really didn't have the confidence to climb up. Soon, the two arrived at the side of the stone pillar. Lei Xingfeng was at his wit's end. The stone pillar was a few hundred meters in diameter, and the curved surface of the stone wall was so smooth that one could see their reflection. There was no place to hold on to. One had to know that the true body was heavy. Without any support, how could one climb up such a high place? Then, Lei Xingfeng's eyes flickered with silver light. He wanted to see what was around him. Then he was really stunned. The surroundings were densely packed with restrictions, and they were the kind that didn't activate. Lei Xingfeng said, sure enough, we can't fly. Whoever flies will die. Xingfeng said, what? How did you know? Lei Xingfeng said, they are all invisible restrictions. Only around the pillar, about 100 meters away, won't be triggered. Also, there are restrictions on the pillar. Xingfeng said, how do we climb? Lei Xingfeng had already seen some clues. He said, "This pillar isn't easy to climb. I don't understand it completely. This should be a path." Xingfeng let out a sigh of relief and said, "Indeed, this seems to be the first pass. How about this? I'll go first. You can come after I've climbed some distance." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "That's good. You go first." He knew very well that once he started climbing, he would trigger the restrictions on the pillar. Because most of the restrictions were invisible, he couldn't see them clearly. Xingfeng looked up and down the stone pillar and said, "It's really smooth. This is troublesome. How do we climb?" He also had a headache. Lei Xingfeng's heart skipped a beat. He said, "Try climbing." Xingfeng said, "Fine. Regardless of whether we can climb up or not, we have to give it a try." Lei Xingfeng looked up and saw that about 100 meters above his head, there were many restriction nodes that flickered in and out of existence. He knew that he couldn't fly. He looked at the stone pillar again and felt that something was off. Xingfeng looked at it for a long time, but he still couldn't find a way to climb up. He was at a loss. In the end, Lei Xingfeng reminded him, "Why don't you try to climb up first? How can you just look at it?" Xingfeng muttered, "But I can't see it. How can I climb it? It's as smooth as a mirror. There's no place to exert strength." As he muttered, he walked to the side of the pillar and placed his hands on it. In the blink of an eye, the restriction in the entire pillar was activated. Then, Lei Xingfeng saw an extremely shocking scene. Xingfeng's real body shrunk like a rubber band. Then, he saw a small person standing on the pillar. The angle was even more shocking. It was 90 degrees, and the pillar was dozens of meters above the ground. He just stood on the surface of the pillar. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but say, "What the F***CK? This is too miraculous." After taking a few steps, Xingfeng, who was originally as tall as a person, shrank once more to a foot tall. One had to know that this wasn't Xingfeng's true body, but his true body. In other words, his true body was 200 meters tall, but under the effect of the restriction, he looked like a small toy model. Lei Xingfeng couldn't close his mouth. This restriction was too special. It could actually do this. At this moment, Lei Xingfeng understood something. The restriction on the pillar was part of a spatial restriction. Otherwise, it couldn't explain why Xingfeng was so small. In fact, rather than Xingfeng becoming smaller, in Xingfeng's eyes, it was the surroundings that became bigger. The pillar was still as big, but in Lei Xingfeng's eyes, it was completely different. He knew that this was another restriction, and he had to activate it to climb up the pillar. In other words, Lei Xingfeng couldn't use any of his methods to avoid the restriction. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to climb up. Amazing. What a powerful restriction. Lei Xingfeng was full of admiration. This restriction should be called a high-level restriction. It forced you to break through it. Even if you knew there was a restriction, you couldn't avoid it. Lei Xingfeng obediently walked to the pillar and placed his hand on it. Suddenly, the surrounding scenery changed. Lei Xingfeng stared blankly at his surroundings. In the blink of an eye, he was standing on a smooth piece of land. All around him was a vast expanse of flat land. Moreover, the surroundings were silent. There wasn't a trace of sound. The rumbling sound of boiling lava suddenly disappeared. Lei Xingfeng felt that his ears were quiet. Standing in place, Lei Xingfeng didn't dare to move. He had to make a judgment. Xingfeng didn't dare to move either. He didn't expect things to turn out like this. Moreover, he was different from Lei Xingfeng. He didn't know that he was on the pillar. His judgment was that he had been moved to another place by the restriction. Perhaps this was the exit. The pitiful Xingfeng looked for a long time, but couldn't figure out anything. There were no directional coordinates here, no signs or markings. Everything was the same. He wanted to take a look. He took out a bottle and casually spilled a little of the liquid in the bottle. Instantly, a small pool of red appeared on the ground. He purposely rubbed it with his foot and then walked in a certain direction. Lei Xingfeng's eyes flickered with silver light. He could easily see through the entire restriction. He could see the pillar because the restriction couldn't block his eyes. He could see through the mysteries within. The direction definitely couldn't be wrong. His destination was the top of the pillar. Then there was nothing wrong with going up. Xingfeng walked quickly. Because he had two true ring bodies, his speed was much faster than his original body. Soon, Xing Feng found the small pool of red. He immediately understood that he was still on the pillar. He had walked around the pillar. After thinking for a moment, Xing Feng set off again. This time, he went in the right direction. Lei Xingfeng quickly realized that this wasn't a restriction to kill people. This was a restriction path. The purpose of this restriction was to allow people to walk, not to kill people. After understanding this, he heaved a sigh of relief. As long as it wasn't a restriction to kill people, this path wouldn't be difficult. The only difficulty was figuring out the direction. This wasn't a problem for Lei Xingfeng at all. As he walked, Lei Xingfeng saw Xing Feng. He couldn't help but laugh. "Old Xing, not bad. You didn't go in the wrong direction." Xing Feng stopped. Seeing Lei Xingfeng catch up from behind, he smiled. "This thing gave me a scare. I didn't expect it to be used like this." Lei Xingfeng said, "You didn't ask in detail back then." Xing Feng said, "Back then, we just had a simple chat. I didn't ask in detail. Back then, I didn't know that I could cultivate to the Dao Saint realm. After such a long time, I even forgot about the small chat. If I didn't see this pillar, I wouldn't have remembered." Lei Xingfeng said, "Did he say how to walk this pillar?" Xing Feng shook his head. "He didn't. If he did, I wouldn't have hesitated for so long. We didn't even know how to get up. Haha, we were still thinking of climbing up. If not for this restriction, how could we do it?" Lei Xingfeng also laughed. "Yeah, such a thick pillar, so smooth. With the burden of a true body, it's impossible to climb." After the two of them met up, they felt much better. After all, the more people there were, the more courage there was. Even if they were strong enough to have two true ring bodies, it was still much better for the two of them to move together. They chatted and laughed as they continued forward. The journey was very smooth, and there were no dangers. Lei Xingfeng's eyes flickered with silver light from time to time. He was calculating how far they had walked. After walking for 2 whole days, Xi and Feng finally noticed that he could see the top. If one were to really calculate the height of the pillar, perhaps it wasn't that high, but with the restriction of space and the restriction of space, this distance was extremely long. Xing Feng exclaimed, "It's just a pillar, and we've walked for 2 days. Unbelievable. We're almost there." Lei Xingfeng quickened his pace. The two of them didn't withdraw their true bodies because Lei Xingfeng realized that if they did, they might fall off the pillar. Xing Feng said, "I wonder what's at the top of the pillar." Lei Xingfeng said, "We'll know when we go up. I can't guess." Xing Feng said, "Now I know why we can't go to the outside world unless we have 2 true ring bodies. It's just a short distance. If we don't have 2 true ring bodies, how can we maintain our true bodies? We don't even know how much energy we have to consume." Lei Xingfeng thought for a while and said, "That's right. Even if we have the strength of a peak sovereign king, we can't sustain our true bodies for long periods of time. If we can't sustain our true bodies, we can't walk for more than 2 days." Xing Feng said, "We walk for 2 days, peak sovereign kings might not even be able to walk that far in 5 days. That speed is simply despairing. Just the first barrier, and all cultivators below 2 true ring bodies were eliminated." Lei Xingfeng said, "We're here." He had already seen the top of the pillar through the restriction. Chapter 850. Xing Feng said, "Is there a restriction at the top?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Yes, there is a restriction. Damn, it is a large-scale spatial restriction." Xing Feng said, "That is for teleportation, right?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Wait, let me take a look." They were just a hair's breadth away. Just one more step and they would reach the top. Of course, he didn't dare to act recklessly. He had to take a look first. The two stopped at the edge. Lei Xingfeng's eyes flickered with silver light as he looked carefully. After a while, he couldn't help but exclaim. This spatial restriction was extremely complicated. It was impossible to see it clearly in a short time. Lei Xingfeng said, "We are not in a hurry to leave. Before we figure it out, I don't dare to step into it." Xing Feng knew about Lei Xingfeng's understanding of restrictions. Of course, she believed him. She said, "It's fine. You study it and then let me know. We have time. There is no need to rush." Lei Xingfeng said, "Don't withdraw your true body. Otherwise, you will be in trouble. Xing Feng didn't know at first. She was startled and said, "What? Ah, I was so close. I was so close to retracting my true body." Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "If you withdrew your true body and didn't fall to your death or get swallowed by the restrictions, you would have to climb this pillar again." Xing Feng said, "So perverted. All right, I won't withdraw my true body. It is really scary. If I'm not careful, I will be done for." In front of him was a thin layer of fog. Xine Feng knew that as long as he stepped into the fog, he would reach the top, which was the range of the space restriction. This was the first time he had seen this space restriction. It didn't have any restrictions of other attributes. It was formed by the combination of various space restrictions. Lei Xingfeng was dazzled by its complexity. He didn't dare to act recklessly. Other than teleportation, once a spatial restriction was designed as an offensive restriction, its power was incomparable to any other type of restriction. It was really powerful. Due to the spatial Fei, Little Kong, Lei Xingfeng's understanding of spatial restrictions had gradually deepened. Especially since Little Kong was residing in Laiyin, he had a deeper understanding of it. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng had the foundation to learn about spatial restrictions. He began to analyze it slowly and let Xiao Kong verify it with Laiyin. Xingfeng was already used to Lei Xingfeng's actions. In the past, when he was with Lei Xingfeng, Xingfeng had been learning from him, and his strength had skyrocketed. This was Lei Xingfeng's cultivation method and experience. Others had no way of learning from him. It could be considered Lei Xingfeng's unique cultivation method. He could study, cultivate, and travel at the same time without any delay. Even if Lei Xingfeng knew what this spatial restriction was for, he would still stop and learn. According to his words, as long as he lived, he would never stop learning. He had to make progress. Otherwise, how could he survive in this world? It took 2 days to walk up and 4 days to learn. On the 4th day, Lei Xingfeng stopped and said, "That's right. This is a teleportation array. It is completely different from our large-scale teleportation doors. This is a trans-realm teleportation array. It is really exquisite and complicated to the extreme. Its power is also incomparably huge." Xingfeng said, "Can we enter?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Yes. The only thing I don't know is the teleportation location. This teleportation array is a trans-realm teleportation array." Xingfeng said, "It is precisely because it is a trans-realm teleportation array that we can reach the outside world." Lei Xingfeng said, "I can't determine the teleportation distance. This thing is very powerful." Xingfeng said, "We can't control it. We have to take risks." Lei Xingfeng laughed. "You are quite optimistic. All right, let's go in." The two walked in and instantly stood at the top of the stone pillar. From here, they could clearly see the situation at the top of the pillar. They were already out of the range of the restriction. Xingfeng asked, "Can we retract our true bodies?" Lei Xingfeng shook his head. "Don't retract your true body. This spatial restriction teleportation array is extremely powerful. If you use your true body to teleport, you will probably be a pile of meat paste by the time you reach the destination." Xingfeng said, all right, this is really F***king scary." This was another hurdle. Without a second true ring body, once the teleportation array was activated, they would be courting death. There was no hope of survival. Lei Xingfeng nodded. "That's right. If you want to cross realms, you have to have at least a second true ring body. Otherwise, it is impossible to cross realms." Xingfeng thought to himself, "Luckily, I brought a phone with me. Otherwise, it would have been troublesome. If I wasn't careful, I might have died." He was thinking of retracting his true body and activating the teleportation array. Once the pressure of the restriction came down, he probably wouldn't even have the chance to release the fire seal. Because there was no restriction, the two stood at the top of the pillar and looked around. This wasn't because they were afraid of heights, but because there were huge flames floating around. Xingfeng pointed at the floating flames and said, "These flames seem very special. I wonder if I can retract them?" He didn't dare to act rashly. He would ask Lei Xingfeng about everything first. Only then would he feel more at ease. Lei Xingfeng said, "That is outside the restriction. If you retract them, you will trigger the restriction. Xing Feng shook his head bitterly. As expected, there is a problem. If someone wants to teleport over, they will probably retract the flames immediately. That will be fun. All right, what will the consequences be? Lei Xingfeng said, I don't know what the consequences will be, but I know that it won't be pleasant. Xing Feng said, forget it. Let's go. Lei Xingfeng nodded. Stand in the middle. I will activate the restriction to teleport. Xing Feng was stunned. He said, what do you mean? You need someone to activate it? Lei Xingfeng said, nonsense. If you don't activate it, how will you teleport? Xing Feng said, damn it. If I came alone, I wouldn't be able to escape. Lei Xingfeng thought about it and agreed. He said, this is a very simple activation. You will know it after I teach you once. Xing Feng said, this is too much. Who should I ask to teach it to? Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but laugh. That's true. I won't activate it before I see it. The two stood at the top of the pillar. Lei Xingfeng's huge hands pressed at the four corners. Immediately, the entire space restriction started to operate. An extremely huge pressure suddenly descended. In an instant, the two couldn't move. Their huge bodies shrunk by half due to the pressure. Xing Feng was shocked. He hurriedly activated the fire seal and sent out a large amount of energy. Lei Xingfeng was the same. Fortunately, he had little sky, so the pressure was much lower. However, he still had to send out a large amount of energy to resist the terrifying pressure. Everything around them was spinning and colorful. It was very beautiful. However, Xing Feng and Lei Xingfeng weren't in the mood to appreciate it. The pressure made them unable to speak. They could only bitterly resist it. The pressure was getting stronger. Lei Xingfeng knew that with the teleportation and the transformation of space, the pressure would definitely crush them into meat paste if they didn't have a certain level of strength. Lei Xingfeng's real body was already emitting lightning. There were even traces of flames. This was a sign that he was operating his real body at full strength. Xing Feng was in even more pain. He didn't expect the pressure to be so great. A large amount of the energy in the fire seal was being consumed. His real body was emitting wisps of flames. They couldn't talk or move. The only thing they could move was their real body. Due to the protection of their real bodies, they could still move their hands and feet slightly. Xing Feng used his real body to take out a stalagmite and directly replenish the fire seal's energy. Lei Xingfeng was also replenishing his energy. He used a high-quality stalagmite. This kind of energy was enough. It would be a waste to use a top-quality stalagmite. Of course, if he felt that he couldn't replenish his energy, he wouldn't hesitate to use a top-quality stalagmite. Xing Feng and Lei Xingfeng were complaining in their hearts. The time was too long. The two felt like a year. They had never spent such a long time in a teleportation before. The pressure was still increasing. Xing Feng and Lei Xingfeng were a little flustered. Lei Xingfeng knew very well that if he couldn't withstand the pressure and his real body collapsed, then he would be finished. His real body wasn't as strong as his real body. If his real body couldn't withstand the pressure, then his real body wouldn't stand a chance. Even if Lei Xingfeng wanted to escape to the mirror realm, it was impossible. This was a spatial transition formed by spatial restrictions. During this period, he couldn't leave unless he reached his destination. This was a natural cage. He had to endure it before he could leave. Xing Feng and Lei Xingfeng didn't know how long it had been. They were both bitterly resisting the crazy pressure. Suddenly, Lei Xingfeng's real body pointed at Lei Yin. At the same time, he gave Xing Feng a look. He wanted to speak, but it was impossible. Even if he spoke, he wouldn't be able to make a sound. However, Xing Feng instantly understood Lei Xingfeng's meaning. His real body nodded slightly. Lei Xingfeng revealed a trace of a smile. Xing Feng understood that Lei Xingfeng's meaning was to use the pressure to adjust the fire seal. This way, his real body would adjust as well. Although this was an extremely dangerous thing, it was the best way to cultivate. Although Xing Feng thought that Lei Xingfeng was crazy, he still followed Lei Xingfeng's instructions and began to adjust his fire seal. Lei Xingfeng also began to adjust his Lei Yin. He mobilized Little Sky and Thunder Phase to nervously adjust. The main thing was to adjust the restrictions. Large amounts of restrictions began to form under the pressure. Some of them were useless, while some were very useful. Lei Xingfeng's role was to suppress the useless ones and promote the useful ones. At the same time, he would provide materials from his real body's hidden in space. This kind of pressure wouldn't exist under normal circumstances, especially for a long time. Thus, this was a test and also an opportunity. Lei Xingfeng had always grasped this opportunity well. As the pressure increased, the real body's pressure would also be transmitted to Lei Yin. Thus, this was also an opportunity for Lei Yin to develop. This was different from a battle. Battles were extremely intense. Even if he wanted to adjust, he would have to wait until after the battle. During the teleportation process, the pressure would be balanced and wouldn't fluctuate. This gave Lei Xingfeng a chance to adjust. Chapter 851. When Xing Feng and Xian Feng were both immersed in adjusting their seals, time didn't seem to be long. Very quickly, the two of them suddenly felt their bodies lighten, the enormous pressure suddenly disappearing. Their true bodies expanded at the same time. They quickly adjusted their true bodies and returned to their normal state. They looked up at the same time. This was a small flatland surrounded by fog. Xing Feng said, the second teleportation? Lei Xingfeng's eyes flickered with silver light. He said with certainty, yes, the second teleportation point. Scary. How far is the outside world? Crossing realms is scary. Xing Feng said, can we retract our true bodies here? Lei Xingfeng observed for a moment and said, yes, we can retract our true bodies. The two hurriedly retracted their true bodies. Even though they had two true ring bodies and had the endless cycle technique, they couldn't take it for such a long time. After retracting their true bodies, the two heaved a sigh of relief. The pressure was too great. Then, Xing Feng let out a weird laugh. Ha ha, Jer. My seal has improved a lot. Ha! Xian Feng remained silent. He wasn't inspecting the lightning stamp or the seal's restrictions, but he was secretly communicating with the mirror world. Very quickly, he let out a sigh of relief. The mirror world was still there. Although he couldn't enter it for now due to the space restrictions, forcefully entering the mirror world wasn't impossible, but if he did, he wouldn't be able to return. As long as the mirror realm was with him, Lei Xingfeng wouldn't panic. This was his home and the foundation of his migration. If he couldn't contact it, it meant that the mirror realm was in outer space and couldn't come out. Only then did Xian Feng begin to inspect the lightning stamp. Very quickly, he was the same as Xing Feng, a shocked expression appearing on his face. The entire lightning stamp had been greatly strengthened during this transfer. This was a reverse process. The true body was under great pressure, which forced the seal to produce more resistance. Perhaps Xing Feng didn't understand, but Xian Feng did. The true body forcing the seal to grow was actually the seal's growth. Lei Xingfeng still had the awareness to keep the useful seals and get rid of the useless ones. The seal's area was limited. Once it was occupied by useless seals, it would affect the seal's power. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng had spent most of his time tormenting Lei Yin. Now that he was relaxed, he could adjust again. However, it was impossible for Xing Feng. This was because Xing Feng's seal knowledge wasn't good enough. He couldn't distinguish which seals were more effective, which were less effective, and which were useless. Therefore, he couldn't adjust them. The only thing he could do now was to keep adding materials to increase the seal's power. Regardless of whether it was useful or not, the more seals there were, the better. The more restrictions there were, the more powerful the seal would be. This was something Xing Feng understood clearly, which was why he was overjoyed. Xian Feng, on the other hand, wasn't the same. He also pursued the number of restrictions, but he had the ability to pursue the effectiveness of the restrictions. To him, it wasn't the more restrictions the better, but the more effective the restrictions the better. Overall, Lei Xingfeng's Lei Yin was much stronger than Xing Feng's. It was different from the beginning. With the adjustment and cultivation, the power of Lei Yin would increase. Lei Xingfeng also took the opportunity to check the teleportation seals in the surroundings. He wanted to learn about the spatial seals here. This place was similar to the starting point. However, it was a transit teleportation array. The activation of this teleportation array required a cultivator. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng dared to withdraw his true body and let it rest for a while. When he was about to leave, he would release his true body and activate the teleportation seal. This was a relay station for people to rest. Xingfeng lay on a rock without caring about his image. The ground here was smooth and flat. The area was only about 100 square meters. He didn't have the mood to check his surroundings. Only he knew how hard and dangerous it was to be teleported here. I'm so tired. A phone. I'm going to rest. Call me when it's time. Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, go ahead and sleep. I also need to rest later. It's really tiring. Xingfeng's head was on the ground. He was already snoring loudly. He fell into a deep sleep. Lei Xingfeng studied as he took out food and water to eat. As he started to understand spatial seals, he quickly understood this teleportation array. This was a teleportation relay station. Only people like him would need such a relay station. If he was stronger, this relay station wouldn't be of much use. After eating and drinking a can of water, Lei Xingfeng lay down and started to sleep. Actually, it was quite dangerous to rest here. If someone teleported here, they would be pushed out of this platform. However, when the two woke up, nothing happened. After all, there weren't many people who could use this teleportation array. Therefore, it was normal to not see people all year round. Xingfeng got up energetically and said, I've rested well. I feel very comfortable. Lei Xingfeng said, I wonder how the pressure is this time. Xingfeng said, we should be able to endure it. Otherwise, our second ring true bodies won't be able to reach outer space. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, if the path is right, then we can cross this teleportation array. Xingfeng said, I don't know how many times we'll have to stop in between. I hope we can arrive early. Lei Xingfeng said, we can't care so much. Let's charge forward. We're all unfamiliar with this place. Xingfeng said, okay. He released his true body and said, I'm ready. You activate the seal. Lei Xingfeng nodded. He also released his true body and activated the seal. In an instant, the huge pressure appeared again. The feeling of being unable to breathe caused their true bodies to be compressed again. However, this time, it was clearly better than last time. Their true bodies were compressed to 2/3 of their original size and stopped shrinking. This showed that their resistance had increased greatly. Using this pressure, the two continued to adjust their seals. Lei Xingfeng had a vague idea. This teleportation array was actually a very good cultivation experience for cultivators. As long as they could master it well, their strength would definitely increase greatly. Lei, because his true body was being suppressed, his seals were being changed. Lei Xingfeng used this rare opportunity to actively change his own Lei. This time, it didn't last long. The two of them felt a little regretful. They wished it could last longer. They even thought of turning back. Of course, they couldn't go back. Therefore, when the second segment ended, the two of them looked at each other and saw the regret in each other's eyes. They couldn't help but laugh. From the feeling of dying to the regret now, this was a great improvement. Lei Xingfeng said, where is this? It was a very simple platform about 10 meters above the ground. Lei Xingfeng checked it and said, it's not a continuous teleportation array. There's probably another teleportation array. We'll have to find it ourselves. Xingfeng said, what do you mean? Lei Xingfeng said, this is either the outside world or a relay station. It's just that this is a terminal. If we want to continue, we'll have to find another starting point. Xingfeng said doubtfully, we're here? No, we shouldn't be here yet. This time, it was Lei Xingfeng's turn to be puzzled. He said why? Xingfeng said, it said that there are many points along the way, and some of them are very dangerous. We don't seem to have encountered any danger. That's why I said no. Lei Xingfeng said, if that's the case, then there's another teleportation array here. We'll have to find it. I didn't expect it to be so troublesome. He thought that a teleportation array would be enough to send them to the outside world. He didn't expect there to be so many twists and turns at the beginning. Xingfeng smiled and said, it's not troublesome. Think about it. How long do we have to run to get out of the ruins? Moreover, We're going to the outside world this time. It won't be so easy. Lei Xingfeng thought about it and understood. Just like in his previous life, if he came out of a small village, he might have to walk to a small town or a county to get on a bus. If he came to a big city, he would have to take a train. If he wanted to go abroad, he would have to take a plane. It was never easy to go from one place to another if the distance was far. Lei Xingfeng observed for a while and said, "Let's go out from here." He found a gap in the restriction. If they went out from here, they wouldn't touch the restriction. When the two came out, Lei Xingfeng looked back and said, "This teleportation array platform is so conspicuous. I believe we can find another teleportation point." Xingfeng said, "Where should we go?" Xian Feng spoke. "The gap we came out from is facing the direction of the gap. It should be the direction we went in. I think this is the only clue we have. It's better than running around randomly." Xingfeng said, "That makes sense. Okay, let's go in the direction of the gap." This place was also a desert. It was so desolate that even Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng felt scared when they saw it. There were no plants or animals, only stones and sand. There was very little soil. The scariest thing was that there wasn't even any water. It was so dry that it was hard to believe. After walking for a short distance, the two of them took out water to drink. Lei Xingfeng even spilled water all over the ground. Then he saw the water disappear in a few seconds. Not even a trace of water could be seen. Lei Xingfeng said, "It's impossible to live in this place. If it were an ordinary person, they would become a dried corpse in less than 10 minutes. Xingfeng nodded and said, "Yeah, it's too dry." Besides the restriction around the teleportation array, there were no other restrictions. Therefore, after walking for a short distance, the two of them flew. Now that they could fly, their speed increased. After flying for about 2 hours, Xingfeng pointed in the distance and said, "What's that?" Lei Xingfeng said, "It looks like a bird." "What a big bird." Chapter 852. Xingfeng said, "It's not moving. It's just a rock. It looks like a bird." "Oh, it's really a bird." Lei Xingfeng said, "Damn, it's flying. How can it be so big?" It was a giant bird with 3 pairs of wings. Its body was extremely long, probably more than 1,000 meters. Among the 3 pairs of wings, the front pair was the smallest, but its wingspan was still a few hundred meters wide. The last pair of wings was even bigger. Its wingspan was even longer than its body. The two of them were more than 10 kilometers away from that strange giant bird. When that giant bird flew up, they could hear the sound of its wings flapping even from such a distance. Sand and pebbles were sent flying. As the giant bird took flight, clouds of dust rose into the air. Then its huge body began to leave the ground. Xingfeng said, "This place, how can such a big bird grow?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Regardless of why it's so big, we just don't provoke it. Let's wait for it to fly over, then we'll leave." As he said this, he landed. Xingfeng agreed and said, "I think so too." He also landed on the ground. Then they saw that giant bird begin to sweep across the sky. Every time it flapped its wings, it would let out a thunderous sound. Lei Xingfeng said, "It shouldn't be a star beast, right?" Xingfeng said, "It's hard to say. However, I've never seen a star beast like this. It's just, if this thing isn't a star beast, then what is it?" Lei Xingfeng said, "That's true. The biggest mutated beast I've ever seen is a star beast. If this thing can leave this continent, then it should be a star beast." "Oh, that makes sense. It's not locally produced. It must have flown here from somewhere else." Xingfeng was a little confused. This place is probably close to the outside world. I've never seen such a huge bird in outer space. Maybe it's a star beast. The two of them had already retracted their true forms when they arrived at the teleportation array. If they revealed their true forms, they would be too big of a target. Although they weren't afraid of the giant bird's attack, they didn't want to complicate matters. They were in a hurry, not here to fight. Moreover, the two of them weren't confident in winning against such a giant bird. That huge bird didn't fly towards them. Instead, it hovered in the air for a while before flying away. After waiting for a few minutes, that huge bird became as small as an ant. Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng knew that they were safe now. Only then did the two of them fly up again and search ahead. Soon, the two of them flew to the place where the giant bird had stopped. There was a huge pit there, hundreds of meters deep, and there was water at the bottom. However, the water was evaporating rapidly, and there was only a thin layer left. When the two of them flew above the pit, the water had almost completely evaporated. Xing Feng said, "He's actually here to drink water. You're quite capable. You can even find a water source here." Lei Xingfeng said, "So there's underground water here. This bird is really something. I thought there was no water here at all." The two of them chatted and laughed as they continued to fly forward. Lei Xingfeng would occasionally look up. Because of the huge bird's size, he could still see its shadow in the sky, even if it was very small. This meant that the giant bird was very far away from the continent. If its body was so huge, he wouldn't be able to see it anymore. Xing Feng said, "What are you looking at?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Look at that bird. It's really huge. I just don't know how strong it is." Xing Feng said, "It's definitely not weak. As the saying goes, one's strength is not a disadvantage." There was no need to test the strength of such a huge bird-shaped monster. It wasn't something an ordinary cultivator could deal with. Soon, Lei Xingfeng couldn't see the huge bird anymore. Xing Feng said, "Don't look. Let's find the teleportation array." Lei Xingfeng said, "I don't think it's too far away. I think we'll reach it after flying for a while." Xing Feng said, "How do you know?" Lei Xingfeng said with a smile, "I just need to guess. It's mainly determined by the characteristics of restrictions." Then he added another sentence. Xing Feng almost vomited blood when he heard this. "Yes, it's the characteristics of spatial restrictions. I don't think you'll understand." Xing Feng said, "Hey, a Feng, you're looking down on me." Lei Xingfeng said with a smile, "How can I look down on you? But you really don't understand." Xing Feng said gloomily, "There are many cultivators who don't understand. I'm not the only one. Really, a Feng, you're making me uncomfortable." Lei Xingfeng said, "There's nothing I can do about it. If you want to understand, then work hard to learn restrictions. What do you think? Do you want to learn? If you want, I'll teach you." Xing Feng was even more annoyed. This was blatant disdain. He said gloomily, "Forget it. I won't talk to you anymore. How can I learn restrictions?" Lei Xingfeng said with a smile, "You can't blame me. I said that if you want to learn, I can teach you. Once you learn, you'll understand everything. If you don't want to learn, who's to blame?" Xing Feng said, "You're ruthless. You know I can't learn it. It requires talent. I don't have any talent. How can I learn it?" Anyway, he didn't want to learn. No matter what Lei Xingfeng said, he wouldn't learn. According to him, he didn't even have time to cultivate. Why should he learn restrictions? However, Xing Feng didn't know that if he understood the restrictions in the seal, his cultivation progress would be completely different. It was just that he didn't understand this principle at all. Lei Xingfeng also didn't think of telling him. If he didn't know the most important point, how could Xing Feng learn restrictions? These things weren't easy to learn. He had to start from scratch. Who knew how much effort and time it would take? Actually, Lei Xingfeng had learned restrictions by chance. He always vaguely felt that restrictions were magical, so he couldn't help but learn. As he learned more, he gradually became obsessed and didn't find it difficult. Especially when he saw the practical benefits of learning restrictions, he worked even harder. When Lei Xingfeng realized that the restrictions in Lei Yin seal were actually self-generated and grew naturally, he understood how the restrictions outside came about. They were learning from the restrictions in his seal. However, it was very difficult to realize this if one hadn't reached the monarch realm. As for the Tao Saint realm, he was very clear. Restrictions were the foundation of the seal, and the power of the seal was completely reflected by the real body. The core of the seal was brought about by restrictions. Xing Feng didn't know that he had missed an extremely good opportunity. If he wanted to perform well in the Tao Saint realm, there was a huge difference between learning restrictions and not learning restrictions. It was a pity that he didn't know. Lei Xingfeng didn't say anything more. The two of them quickly flew forward. During this time, Lei Xingfeng even looked around to see if there were any mines on the ground. This was a habit of his. It was a pity that there weren't any useful materials here. What a poor place. Xingfeng asked, what's wrong? Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, there aren't any materials here. However, this is also right. There are teleportation formations here. If there are good things here, it is inevitable that many people will come and affect the teleportation restrictions. Xingfeng was about to speak when he saw a piece of land in the distance. He pointed there and said, Is that? Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, it is really in a straight line. That's right. I believe it is. The two of them increased their speed. In a short while, the two of them arrived at the edge of the land. Xingfeng asked, Are there restrictions here? Lei Xingfeng said, Of course there are restrictions. This restriction is quite strong. Xingfeng asked, How strong? Can it block the giant bird we saw earlier? Lei Xingfeng said, Yes. This restriction isn't a killing restriction. It is a spatial restriction. Xingfeng asked, What do you mean? Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly. He looked at Xingfeng and said, Don't be angry even if I tell you. You don't understand. Although Xingfeng wasn't angry, he still stomped his feet and said, You are looking down on me again. Lei Xingfeng didn't know what to do. He said, It's true. If I say spatial restriction, then let's talk about spatial displacement. Do you know anything about spatial displacement? Xingfeng was annoyed and said, Forget it. I don't know anything about spatial displacement. Lei Xingfeng laughed. Xingfeng was finally forced to admit that he didn't know anything about spatial displacement. Xingfeng smiled bitterly and said, Actually, it's not embarrassing even if you don't know anything about spatial displacement. Most cultivators don't know anything about spatial displacement. Lei Xingfeng said, That's true. Among the people I know, not many are interested in restrictions. Xingfeng's mood instantly improved. He said, That's right. Among the people I know, no one likes restrictions. You are an exception. You are a big surprise. Actually, if Lei Xingfeng hadn't met Xingfeng, it would have been difficult for him to reach the Monarch realm, much less the Dao Saint realm. This was his luck and Xingfeng's luck. Lei Xingfeng brought Xingfeng and entered the restriction skillfully. There was also a path here. Others might have some tricks, but Lei Xingfeng didn't need them. He just needed to take a look to know where this path was. When they reached the platform, Lei Xingfeng observed it and said, Strange. There is a very small teleportation restriction. It points to a specific direction. We don't even need to release our real bodies. We can go there directly. Do we leave now? Xingfeng was a little disappointed and said, we don't need to release our real bodies? He couldn't wait to release his real bodies. Lei Xingfeng said, Yes. This teleportation formation is very normal. It's not the special kind. The distance it can teleport is not very far. It is similar to the large teleportation gates where we come from. Xingfeng said, I see. That's strange. The teleportation here seems to be different from where we come from. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, There is indeed a difference. The restrictions are all different. The understanding of restrictions here is much better than where we come from. Xingfeng said, Stronger than where we come from? Lei Xingfeng said, Of course. With our attitude towards restrictions, how can they be strong? Xingfeng said, I don't believe it. There are so many restrictions in the fantasy sky realm. How can they not be strong? Lei Xingfeng sneered and said, They are not man-made. Self-generated restrictions and man-made restrictions are different. Chapter 853. Xingfeng was very thick-skinned. He said, Who knows what self-destruction is? Let's not bother you. Let's go. Lei Xingfeng smiled. All right. He reached out to activate the restriction. Xingfeng was envious. He was still rejoicing in his heart. If not for Lei Xingfeng, he probably would have died in the first step, not to mention the rest of the process. This was probably the real reason why no one in the outer realm could go to the outer realm. One had to be at the Dao Sage level and have profound restriction abilities. Such a person also had to want to go to the outer realm. Otherwise, they would not have activated the teleportation restriction here. In all these years, only Xi Feng and Xingfeng have been able to meet so many conditions to be able to leave the outer realm starry sky. Perhaps many, many years ago, someone from the outer realm had left. However, Lei Xingfeng and Xing Feng believed that no one had left in the past few hundred years. The two of them were suddenly teleported out. This time, the speed was really fast. Lei Xingfeng felt that it would not take more than 2 minutes. Compared to the original large-scale teleportation door, this was considered an ultra-long-distance teleportation. Everything was chaotic. Their surroundings were shaking violently. 2 minutes, or perhaps just 2 minutes. Lei Xingfeng and Xing Feng stood on a platform. Lei Xingfeng smiled. All right, another platform. Oh, let me see. What kind of restriction is this? Xing Feng did not recognize the restriction and could only stand aside and wait. It was another double restriction. This meant that this restriction could only teleport them back and forth. There was no other use. This also meant that Lei Xingfeng and Xing Feng had to find another teleportation restriction. Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly. Let's go and find another teleportation restriction. Xing Feng was very unhappy. Again? All right, I admit it. He had no choice but to admit it. He would be stupid to stay here. Thus, he could only follow Lei Xingfeng to find another restriction. Xing Feng sighed and said, "This is tiring." Lei Xingfeng said, "Stop complaining. Let's go." Walking out of the platform, Lei Xingfeng and Xing Feng were overjoyed. This was because the teleportation array was right beside them. Even Xing Feng had seen it and recognized it. As for the surrounding environment, the two of them directly ignored it. When the two of them arrived in front of him, Xing Feng was dumbfounded. He asked, "Is this a teleportation array?" Lei Xingfeng nodded. "Yes, but it's a little troublesome." This teleportation array had 2 levels. One was on the high platform, and the side of the high platform had a large depression about 20 meters deep. It was also a teleportation array. Seeing 2 teleportation arrays, Lei Xingfeng was stunned. Which teleportation array should he use? If he made a mistake, the consequences would be very serious. Lei Xingfeng said, "Of these 2 teleportation portals, one is for short-distance teleportation, and it's one way. Once you go there, you won't be able to come back. The other one is, it requires the real body to teleport. Old Xing, which one do you choose?" Xing Feng said, "There's a one-way restriction. Can we come back using the secret door?" Lei Xingfeng said, "No. Even if it's short-distance teleportation, our secret door can't reach it." Xing Feng said, "If we go there, we won't be able to come back. Then don't choose." His meaning was clear. If they went there, they wouldn't be able to come back. What was the point of going there? They would definitely choose the other one. Xian Feng was slightly hesitant. Actually, he could have come back using the mirror world, but he didn't want to give up on Xing Feng. To go to the outside world without a companion, going alone, he felt a little scared. Lei Xingfeng agreed with Xing Feng's point. He said, "Okay, then let's go down this teleportation array." Then he jumped down. Xing Feng followed. The two of them released their real bodies at the same time. Lei Xingfeng smiled. "We can use the pressure to cultivate again." Xing Feng nodded and said, "That's not bad. It's not easy to use this to cultivate." Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's go." Then he started to activate the restriction. In the blink of an eye, the enormous pressure caused the two of them to be unable to move. The pressure was as heavy as a mountain. Xing Feng was shocked because the pressure this time was obviously higher than when they came out. Moreover, it was still increasing. Lei Xingfeng also felt that something was wrong. However, since they were already here, there was nothing to regret. He used the pressure to make Lei Yin start to create restrictions. This was a reverse process. Every time the real body was compressed, Lei Yin would output a large amount of energy. If it was too late, Lei Yin would increase the number of restrictions. One round trip was the output of energy, the feedback of pressure, and the creation of restrictions. One round trip could create dozens or even dozens of new restrictions. There would be 1 or 2 useless restrictions. Lei Xingfeng would deliberately stop them from growing and force them to become useful restrictions. He could already do this with the help of the Thunder spiritual item and Lil Sky. Xing Feng couldn't do anything. He didn't have the power to affect the new formation in his fire seal. He could only try to strengthen it. He needed to provide materials and energy to make the formation grow. This time, the pressure was a little abnormal. Moreover, the pressure was increasing. The most important thing was that the pressure didn't stay still. It was increasing constantly. If it was increasing slowly, it would be fine. However, it was increasing at a very fast speed. Xingfeng was so nervous that he was about to explode. The pressure made it impossible for him to adjust. Going back and forth, it was originally a very rhythmic adjustment. Now that the pressure was increasing, it was transmitted back to the seal. Then, according to the pressure, the seal would input the appropriate amount of energy to support it. However, the feedback wasn't in time, so the real body started to be compressed. Originally, the real body was more than 200 meters tall. After a period of time, the real body was compressed to more than 130 meters, and it was still shrinking. Xingfeng made a hand gesture, and Xingfeng nodded. The two of them had been in sync for a long time and could easily understand each other's thoughts. Xingfeng's intention was clear. He wanted to use this chance to forcefully increase his strength and activate the seal. Xingfeng clenched his teeth and began to increase the amount of energy he poured into the seal. Moreover, what he gave were all good things, stalagmites. After racking his brains, he took out all the stalagmites in his hidden Luen space and sent them into the seal. Xingfeng was going all out. If he couldn't withstand it, he would lose his life. What was the point of keeping the stalagmites? Lei Xingfeng also threw in a large amount of stalagmites. Moreover, they were all high-quality ones. He didn't want to use high-quality ones. These things were very hard to replenish. He had plenty of high-quality stalagmites in his hidden lens space. As for the normal ones, he threw them all into the mirror world. His hidden lens space couldn't store them. The two's strength began to increase rapidly. Finally, the real body stopped shrinking and temporarily maintained a balance. In other words, the speed of the restrictions in the seal and the pressure outside had reached the same level. Xingfeng's fire seal and Lei Xingfeng's Lei Yin were both growing rapidly. The speed of restrictions was increasing. Xingfeng could still handle it, but Lei Xingfeng was a bit tired. This was because he had to get rid of the restrictions that he didn't need. Even so, Xingfeng's speed of creating restrictions had reached the level of 30 to 40 restrictions in a single round trip, and many of them had even started to combine. Once the restrictions were combined, they would form a compound restriction. This type of restriction was even stronger. This kind of cultivation speed was extremely fast, but it also had a huge drawback. That was the need for sufficient preparation. If the materials were insufficient, then this kind of rapid growth wouldn't be possible, or there would be a huge problem. However, Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng both had large amounts of materials in their collection. This problem didn't exist. As the pressure increased, Xingfeng and Lei Xingfeng secretly complained. One had to know that the pressure of the teleportation space could increase indefinitely, but the two of them couldn't. The two of them didn't know how much the pressure would increase and how long it would take. The two of them could only bitterly hold on. The balance was broken again, and their real bodies were compressed again. In just a short moment, their real bodies were compressed to within 100 meters, and their seals were in an extremely tense state. Xingfeng's face revealed a panicked expression. Lei Xingfeng was still fine because he had a spatial fey. Xiao Kong was busy, and large amounts of spatial restrictions appeared in Lei Yin's body. At this moment, Lei Xingfeng was no longer able to suppress the spatial restrictions. In an instant, thousands of spatial restrictions appeared and quickly formed a compound restriction. Immediately after, they were fed back to the real body. Then, Xingfeng saw a frightening scene. Lei Xingfeng's real body suddenly expanded and returned to a height of nearly 200 meters. Lei Xingfeng felt Lei Yin's body relax, and he immediately understood that the spatial restrictions had taken effect. Xingfeng couldn't understand how Lei Xingfeng could withstand such a huge pressure. His real body was about to collapse. Suddenly, Lei Xingfeng's huge arm actually moved. Xingfeng was dumbfounded. It could actually move? He tried, but it didn't budge. Xingfeng was about to cry. Originally, everyone was in the same situation. He didn't expect Lei Xingfeng to break free from the pressure. Wasn't this asking for his life? Lei Xingfeng's real body finally raised its arm and placed it on Xingfeng's body. In an instant, Xingfeng felt his body lighten. That huge pressure was actually removed by Lei Xingfeng. He didn't know how Lei Xingfeng did it, but Xingfeng felt as though he had escaped from the gates of hell. He looked at Lei Xingfeng gratefully. At this moment, the two of them broke free from the spatial restriction. When they stepped on solid ground, the surrounding pressure suddenly disappeared. Both of them knew that they had arrived. After removing their real bodies, both of them had ugly expressions. Lei Xingfeng said, "So scary." Xingfeng said, "Feng, there's no need to thank me. Although I don't understand how you recovered, I know that my real body is about to collapse." Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "Actually, I'm also about to collapse. There are some reasons that I can't explain. However, I finally endured it." Xingfeng said, "There's something wrong with this teleportation array. Why is it so scary?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I don't know. It's really scary." Xingfeng looked around and said, "What the hell is this place?" Chapter 854. Lei Xingfeng also started to pay attention to their surroundings. First, he checked the restrictions around them. The environment was not harmful to them. First, he had to make sure there were no restrictions around them and whether they would be a threat to them. Then, he started to observe the surroundings. However, the restrictions protecting the platform were no different from the previous platforms. The surrounding environment was rather peculiar. It was an isolated island surrounded by seawater, and the sea stretched as far as the eye could see in all directions. Then, Lei Xingfeng was surprised. Xingfeng noticed Lei Xingfeng's strange expression and asked, "What's wrong?" Lei Xingfeng said, "There are so many restrictions hidden in the sea. This is the first time I've seen so many restrictions in the water." Xingfeng said, "I'm numb to restrictions. How should we go? Are they powerful?" Lei Xingfeng said, "There are restrictions 1 meter below the surface of the water. Above that, there are no restrictions. We can fly over. However, I don't know what's inside the restrictions." These words caused Xingfeng's eyes to shine. It had to be known that during the transmission, he had used up countless materials to replenish his fire seal. It was like a wealthy person suddenly becoming poor. This sort of embarrassment caused greed to appear in his heart for the first time. "Why don't we go down and take a look?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Do you dare to go down?" Xingfeng laughed and said, "Of course you go down. I'll wait." Lei Xingfeng said, "I see. Okay, I'll go down and take a look. It'll be great if there's something there. Even if there isn't, I won't lose anything." Actually, he also wanted to go down and take a look. Even if he couldn't get anything, the restrictions here seemed to be special. It would be good to learn. Xingfeng said, "I'll wait for you at the edge of the platform." Lei Xingfeng said, "Okay, wait for me here." He pointed to a place where the restrictions wouldn't affect him and asked him to sit and wait. Xingfeng sat down at the edge of the platform. In front of him was the passageway left behind by the restriction. As long as he paid attention to how Lei Xingfeng exited, he would be able to follow suit. Therefore, he was not in a hurry to leave. Lei Xingfeng came to the surface of the sea through the twisting restriction cracks, which was also the passage left behind. Silver light flickered in his eyes. Since he planned to go down and take a look, he had to observe first. Hovering a few meters above the sea, Lei Xingfeng carefully observed for a moment before jumping into the water. Xingfeng had been paying attention to Lei Xingfeng's movements. He saw him fall into the water with a splash and swim straight down, disappearing in an instant. He stared at the place where Lei Xingfeng disappeared in confusion and couldn't help but mutter in his heart, "I didn't see what he was hiding from." Most of the restrictions in the sea were water-type restrictions. There were also very few spatial restrictions and some ice-type restrictions. However, these restrictions were quite complicated. The mechanism of their operation was a little different from that on land. This was also one of the reasons why Lei Xingfeng was interested in them. In the water, Lei Xingfeng could also use the spatial displacement skill. Any restriction nodes wandering in the water would be replaced as long as they touched him. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng wouldn't touch any restrictions. The restriction nodes here were urgent and dense. Moreover, they appeared in clusters. If it was before Lei Xingfeng had mastered the spatial restriction and obtained Shao Kong, it would be very difficult for him to avoid these restriction nodes. Now, he didn't need to avoid them at all. He could just use this spatial restriction to replace them. No matter how many restriction nodes there were or how dense they were useless against him. As he dove down, Lei Xingfeng thought that there should be a lot of fish in the water. However, he didn't even find a small catfish. Instead, he found some transparent, jellyfish-like objects floating in the water. They weren't big either. The biggest one was only the size of a fist, and the smallest one was the size of a red date. They were also emitting a faint light. At a glance, they were like stars in the sky. They were very beautiful. Lei Xingfeng noticed that when the restriction nodes encountered them, it was as if they didn't exist. They passed through them easily and didn't trigger any restrictions at all. Lei Xingfeng didn't know what these things were for. Perhaps they were materials for water-type cultivators. After collecting some as samples, Lei Xingfeng continued to dive down. Soon, Lei Xingfeng left the restriction range and came to the bottom of the sea. The current here was turbulent. Lei Xingfeng was able to withstand it at first, but he soon found that the strength of his main body wasn't enough. Especially when the pressure of the sea increased rapidly, his main body couldn't bear it anymore. Since he had left the restriction range, Lei Xingfeng immediately released Lei Yin. In an instant, his huge true body appeared, and his main body immediately relaxed. In the sea, due to the huge buoyancy, Lei Xingfeng's true body didn't feel as heavy as usual when he came out. He continued to dive down. The huge true body was like a huge submarine that rushed to the bottom of the sea. The surroundings became darker and darker. Soon, it was pitch black. Lei Xingfeng released a ball of lightning and suspended it in front of his head. As he continued to dive, the lightning illuminated the surroundings. Then he saw a group of snake-like sea creatures that were as thick as a finger and 1 meter long. This group of creatures swam around his huge true body once, but soon lost interest and left quietly. Lei Xingfeng didn't know how deep the sea was. However, he soon saw a cliff. It was a cliff at the bottom of the sea, and the sea below the cliff was even deeper. He began to hesitate whether to continue diving. Lei Xingfeng already felt a little pressure. If his true body could feel pressure, it meant that this place was very deep. However, how could he do it without any gains? Lei Xingfeng always believed that a thief would never leave empty-handed. No, it meant that if he paid the price, he had to reap the rewards. Lei Xingfeng gritted his teeth and swam down the cliff. The current was even more turbulent. Even Lei Xingfeng's huge body was carried along by the current. He had no choice but to cling to the cliff and climb down. Fortunately, his true body was heavy and wouldn't be swept down by the current. After an unknown amount of time, Lei Xingfeng's feet touched the ground. 2 balls of lightning shot out and illuminated a small area around him. It was all jet-black huge rocks. Under the illumination of the lightning, they really looked like countless monsters. They were grotesque and variegated. It was a horrifying sight. The eyes of Lei Xingfeng's true body emitted a silver glow. In an instant, he saw everything around him clearly. What made him extremely disappointed was that he was surrounded by strange rocks. He couldn't see anything valuable. He didn't want to give up. He had never encountered such a strange situation before. Lei Xingfeng was underwater. He took large strides forward and released 7 or 8 balls of lightning at the same time. This was an underwater canyon. The current in the middle was very turbulent. However, Lei Xingfeng's true body was extremely strong. He walked along the bottom of the canyon and kept moving forward. His true body was huge. Every step he took covered tens of meters. Therefore, his movement speed wasn't slow at all. After walking for about half an hour, Lei Xingfeng's eyes suddenly lit up. Countless specks of jellyfish were floating in the sea. They were slightly different from the jellyfish that appeared in the restriction. There were more jellyfish here, and the lights they emitted were more varied. The colorful jellyfish, together with their long tentacles, fluttered in the water like ribbons. With the help of the jellyfish's light, Lei Xingfeng vaguely saw a strange building. At first, he thought it was something that was naturally formed by rocks. However, after paying a little more attention, he understood that this thing shouldn't have been formed naturally. This was because the outline had edges and corners. It was naturally very difficult to form a horizontal and vertical edge. Lei Xingfeng finally found something. Only then did he feel a little better. If he had been busy for half a day and didn't get anything, Lei Xingfeng probably wouldn't have believed him. It was actually a building. When Lei Xingfeng approached it, he was also stunned. After getting a little closer, Lei Xingfeng discovered that this building was very simple. It was dug out using the original huge rocks and cultivated a little. To be precise, rather than calling it a building, it was more like a huge hollow hole. Water spurted out from the hole. This hole was incomparably huge. Then, Xi and Feng saw a gigantic body curled up at the entrance of the cave, a gigantic tail coiled under its body, while its upper body was that of a human's, with 6 thick arms that were completely bony, connected to its body by a thick membrane, and a gigantic head that was even weirder than the rest of its body. The skull was streamlined. A huge bone spur extended to the back of the spine. It was connected by layers of membrane. There were at least dozens of thorns. The entire face protruded forward. The mouth, nose, and eyes were complete. However, it looked more like a fish head. Under the impact of the huge water current, the entire body was as stable as a rock. An outsider. Furthermore, it was an outsider in the water. One look, and one could tell that it was not to be trifled with. Lei Xingfeng did not want to fight an underwater outsider here. He slowly retreated. At this moment, the outsider suddenly opened its eyes. Its wash-basin-sized eyeballs emitted a faint blue light. These eyeballs were slightly protruding. The vertical pupils and 2 layers of eyelids gave off an extremely cold feeling. Lei Xingfeng's heart thumped. He knew that he could not leave. He was a little bitter in his heart. This was the outsider's home ground. Then, he saw the outsider's mouth crack open, revealing fine, sharp teeth. Moreover, it spat out bubbles at him. Lei Xingfeng's huge real body also stabilized. He bent slightly, one hand in front of him and the other on his abdomen. This was a fighting and defensive posture. There was no way to communicate, especially underwater. If it was not his real body, even standing would be difficult. Ji, an ear-piercing sound was suddenly transmitted to his real body. Lei Xingfeng's real body could hear it clearly. This sound made his teeth itch. Then he saw the outsider's 6 arms waving. Its body spun and stood upright. Lei Xingfeng looked carefully. It was more than 200 meters long. It was about the same size as his real body. This made him relax a little. The size of the body could not be said to be a 100% representation of one's strength. However, a huge body could at least give a rough idea of one's strength. Lei Xingfeng felt that he could handle it. The only thing he was not sure about was that he was not a water or ice cultivator. If they fought, he would probably be at a disadvantage. Chapter 855. Lei Xingfeng wasn't afraid of fighting, especially with an outsider. He didn't feel any burden in his heart. He could just directly kill. There was no doubt about it. Outsiders and humans were death. This was already imprinted in his bones. With a wave of his hand, countless lightning flashed. Lei Xingfeng shot out more than 100 balls of lightning in one breath, lighting up the entire seabed. Each ball of lightning was as big as a water tank. Not only could they illuminate the surroundings, if an outsider were to come into contact with them, they would also be electrocuted. The outsider kept swimming around Lei Xingfeng. Its speed was simply too fast. Lei Xingfeng admitted that he couldn't compare. When the outsider left the ground, Lei Xingfeng's Lei Yin suddenly jumped, which attracted his attention. Lei Xingfeng saw that the ground where the outsider was originally sitting was suffused with a faint green brilliance. With just a glance, he knew that it was a treasure-grade material. As for what it was, he didn't know. If it could make Lei Yin jump, then it wasn't something ordinary. The originally unwilling fight immediately aroused Lei Xingfeng's fighting spirit. He couldn't help but lament in his heart. Humans die for wealth. Birds die for food. If I can't kill this guy, then don't think about getting this treasure. Let's fight. This was Lei Xingfeng's first time fighting underwater. He had never experienced it before. He had no choice but to go on the defensive first. He wanted to see what the opponent's methods were. This was also why he had to be careful. The outsider nimbly circled Lei Xingfeng. Its speed was getting faster and faster. The current also formed a huge whirlpool, driving the water to pressure Lei Xingfeng. Waves of heavy pressure surged. However, after going through the test of spatial pressure, Lei Xingfeng didn't feel anything. His body didn't even sway. Steady as a rock, Lei Xingfeng stood there motionlessly. All of a sudden, a ball of lightning flashed and blocked the path of the flying alien. The timing was too accurate. The alien was so pleased with himself that he didn't have time to dodge. He crashed into the ball of lightning. Aquatic animals were all afraid of electricity, and so was this outsider. When the ball of lightning hit him, he lost his speed and his whole body began to tremble violently. Lei Xingfeng didn't hold back. Continuous lightning balls hit his body. At the same time, Lei Xingfeng also released a thick lightning bolt, which directly struck his body. Then, Lei Xingfeng rushed out. He punched out fiercely. The speed of this punch was very frightening. It brought with it countless bubbles as it shot out like a flood dragon. Although the alien was trembling from the electricity and his long tail was swinging wildly, his 6 arms were waving with all their might. The membrane that connected his arms to his body was activated. His body moved slightly and immediately dodged the punch that was aimed at his head. This punch didn't miss. It landed on the shoulder and the root of the arm. Gotcha! Even in the water, Lei Xingfeng's main body could hear this crisp sound. One punch had broken one of the alien's arms. Then, Lei Xingfeng punched out again. The alien's face was filled with fear. He probably didn't expect Lei Xingfeng to be so powerful. Even in the water, his punch was still so fast. He didn't know that this punch's attack contained the element of spatial restriction. The water couldn't stop it at all. Ha! The alien's tail curled up and instantly caught the fist. It followed the fist and wrapped around the thick arm of Lei Xingfeng's main body. This punch stopped in front of the alien's head. It was forcibly stopped by the alien's tail. Lei Xingfeng was slightly surprised. His whole body shook, and he suddenly raised his arm. Along with the alien's huge body, he swung it forcefully. Lei Xingfeng released his fist and grabbed the alien's tail. He swung it and smashed it down. In an instant, Lei Yin's huge power poured into his main body. The alien's 5 arms waved with all their might, trying to control his body. However, this power was too huge. He couldn't control it at all and could only wave his arms in vain. This was what Lei Xingfeng did. He smashed the alien's own building. Although there was no sound, the entire seabed shook. Xingfeng sat on the platform and stared at the calm sea. Suddenly, the platform he was sitting on shook violently. The sea in the distance suddenly surged. He couldn't help but stand up and stare at the sea. A large number of bubbles surged on the surface of the sea like a fountain. Then there was another one and another one. Xingfeng was puzzled. After smashing down 3 times, the entire sturdy rock collapsed. Black liquid spread out, and the outlander began to bleed. The alien regretted using his tail to wrap Lei Xingfeng's arm. He didn't expect that Lei Xingfeng would grab him. He was smashed until he was dizzy. He felt like all the bones in his body were about to shatter. It was too ruthless. He struggled with all his might. If he couldn't break free, the alien knew that if he continued smashing, he would lose his life. After a few random smashes, 2 more of his arms were broken. Now, he only had 3 arms left. He picked up a huge rock and smashed it down while Lei Xingfeng was pulling him up. He wanted to smash Lei Xingfeng's head into mush. Xingfeng didn't even try to dodge. He only lowered his head slightly. His true body's head wasn't his main body's head. If it was his main body's head, it would probably be destroyed along with his body. However, his true body's head was different. It was made of energy and was as hard as his fist. Therefore, when the huge rock smashed onto the head of Lei Xingfeng's main body, a flower bloomed. It wasn't the head that bloomed, but the huge rock that bloomed and shattered. Using this opportunity, Lei Xingfeng swung the alien again. This time, he grabbed his tail with both hands. This time, his strength was great. The alien smashed the huge rock onto Lei Xingfeng's head. He was overjoyed. He didn't expect that before he could do anything else, a huge force that he couldn't resist was transmitted from his tail to his body. At this moment, he really wanted to break his tail. Although they were at the bottom of the sea and there was heavy water pressure, Lei Xingfeng could still do it. He wanted the alien to understand what it felt like to be swung around. He swung 3 times in one breath, creating a whirlpool. This time, Lei Xingfeng took 2 steps forward and smashed him into the cliff. The ground shook and the sea shook. A huge hole was smashed into the cliff. This time, the alien couldn't withstand it and fainted. Lei Xingfeng didn't know that he had fainted. He continued to smash with all his might. The bottom of the sea was a mess. Sand, stone, and rock fragments were tossed about, making the bottom of the sea a mess. Dragging the alien in front of him, Lei Xingfeng's huge hand grabbed his neck. With a twist, his neck was broken. Only then did Exine let go, allowing the corpse to float away with the water. Very quickly, the blurry surroundings became clear again under the rapid flow of water. Under the illumination of the lightning balls, everything appeared once again. The bottom of the sea was a mess. The water carried away the broken rocks. The alien's building had collapsed. The place where he had been sitting was also covered by a huge rock. Lei Xingfeng sighed inwardly. He walked over and began to move the huge rock. However, this huge rock wasn't as heavy as he had imagined. It was probably because of the buoyancy of the water, so it was easy to move. After moving a few huge rocks, the original ground was revealed. When he got closer, he saw that the green light was actually little silver pieces. They were the size of a wash basin and slightly protruding. There were about 200 to 300 pieces. He didn't know what they were made of, but Lei Xingfeng knew that they were treasures. With a push of his finger, the stone platform split open. Lei Xingfeng pulled out one. This thing was like a vertical egg. The big head was at the top, and the small head was at the bottom. It was an oval-shaped, pale, silver stone egg. He tried to put in a Leiyin, but it was snatched away by Shao Kong. Lei Xingfeng thought, could it be a spatial material? He didn't understand at the moment. He threw a few more in a Leiyin. As expected, they were taken away by Shao Kong. Lei Xingfeng didn't continue. He put the silver stone egg into his hidden lune space. He planned to slowly study it in the future. There was only one layer. Lei Xingfeng dug down and found that there wasn't anything underground. However, to be able to obtain these silver stone eggs, it wasn't a waste of time. After searching one round, Lei Xingfeng didn't plan to stay any longer. This place was a little strange, especially after discovering this outsider. Lei Xingfeng had already given up on exploring. With a push of his legs, his huge, true body began to rise. His 2 huge legs swung vigorously, and his 2 hands paddled. This strength was different from swimming in his previous life. His strength was too great. Its huge body rose up rapidly, making him a little scared. At this moment, Lei Xingfeng suddenly noticed a few shadows flashing by. His heart tightened. The eyes of his main body flickered with silver light. He thought, as expected, there are outsiders here. It was no wonder that he felt uneasy and decided to leave. There were indeed other outsiders here. Lei Xingfeng didn't dare to stay any longer. He wasn't afraid of fighting one outsider, but a few of them, especially in the sea, made his heart beat faster. Therefore, he had to run as fast as he could. No, he had to swim. Lei Xingfeng swam with all his might. Soon, he saw a few shadows scuttling over. One of them was already very close. Lei Xingfeng was amazed. This speed was simply too fast. He simply couldn't compare. One was like a car, while the other was like running. Then, Lei Xingfeng saw an outsider charging over aggressively. Chi! A sharp sound exploded. Lei Xingfeng's main body scolded. F*CKU, what are you screaming for? As he spoke, a thick electric current shot out. The speed of the electric current was incomparably fast. In an instant, it blasted the outsider's body. Immediately, the outsider twitched. Lei Xingfeng didn't have time to tangle with him. He swam upwards with all his might. There was an outsider charging over from the left and right. To be precise, they were charging over. Lei Xingfeng shot out a lightning bolt from the left and right. He didn't look at the results and continued swimming. At this moment, he saw the restriction node. Chi, 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 chi. Intense screams resounded in the water like thunder. It was obvious that the outsiders chasing after them had all gone crazy. Chapter 856. Lei Xingfeng raised his head and looked at the restriction. He hesitated for a moment, but he quickly made a decision. He hovered at the edge of the restriction, and his huge, true body suddenly shot out bolts of lightning towards the outsiders. Bolts of lightning and balls of lightning shot out. Lei Xingfeng suddenly discovered something strange. The moment the lightning shot out, it instantly disappeared. Then, it suddenly reappeared not far from the outsiders. The same was true for the balls of lightning. This kind of lightning attack was no longer a matter of speed. Instead, it was instantaneous. There was no need to waste time, and it would hit the opponent directly. This was the effect of the spatial restriction. This was the effect of the spatial restriction in Lei Yin's mind. Lei Xingfeng instantly understood. He couldn't help but be overjoyed. This kind of attack had countless benefits. It was especially hard for the enemy to guard against. It was almost impossible for the enemy to dodge the attack unless they were a spatial cultivator. However, Lei Xingfeng hadn't seen a single spatial cultivator until now. Therefore, the outsiders couldn't block this kind of attack. The outsiders who rushed over were all beaten by Lei Xingfeng. Lei Xingfeng secretly sighed. He didn't want to tangle with so many outsiders. These guys weren't weak. Fighting underwater for a long time wasn't something Lei Xingfeng was good at. Therefore, after locking the outsiders in place, Lei Xingfeng quickly withdrew his true body. Then, he entered the restriction array and quickly rose up. The outsiders watched as Lei Xingfeng disappeared into the restriction array. They were all furious, but no one dared to chase after him. This layer of restriction array had caused them to lose countless people. No one dared to challenge it. Even the most powerful experts of their race had died in the restriction array. They had given up on the idea of going out. However, they hadn't expected that an outsider would come in. Moreover, it was the most despicable human. Lei Xingfeng thought that the outsiders would chase after him. Therefore, he used all his strength to replace the restriction nodes around him and quickly swam up. Moments later, Lei Xingfeng leaped out of the sea and saw that the entire sea was covered in a thick layer of white foam, which drifted away with the waves. He saw Lei Xingfeng waving his hand nonstop. Even though he was far away, Lei Xingfeng could still see him clearly. He sighed and flew over. When Lei Xingfeng landed on the ground, Xingfeng asked, "Are you fighting someone down there?" Lei Xingfeng said, "There are outsiders. They should be outsiders who live at the bottom of the sea. They are quite strong." Xingfeng said, "No wonder there are waves down there. The fight must be very intense, right?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I killed one, but a group came, so I had no choice but to leave. They don't seem to have the guts to break through the restrictions under the sea, so they didn't follow us. Otherwise, we would have to fight them again." Xingfeng asked, "Did you find anything?" Lei Xingfeng said, "We will encounter outsiders if we go down." Hee hee. Xingfeng said, "What a pity. Perhaps there are many good things down there. There are outsiders who are willing to stay here. There must be good things." Lei Xingfeng said, "Forget it. Let's continue. We should be able to find the exit point here." The two left together and searched around. Generally speaking, the second exit point would appear nearby. Therefore, it didn't take long for them to find a teleportation platform. Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng often sighed. They didn't know who would be so generous to build so many teleportation platforms. If it weren't for these platforms, they wouldn't have been able to reach the outside world. The journey was too long. Lei Xingfeng kept checking the mirror world along the way. He was afraid that the mirror world would still be in the same place, and he would have already left. That would be tragic. Fortunately, the mirror world had been following them all the way and showed no signs of leaving. Lei Xingfeng was in a good mood. As long as the mirror world didn't have any accidents, everything else could be ignored. After finding the teleportation platform, Lei Xingfeng didn't waste any time. Since there were already underwater residents here, it would be difficult to find anything unless they wanted to kill these outsiders. However, Lei Xingfeng didn't have such thoughts. It wasn't a matter of whether he could defeat them or not. The main thing was that he didn't want to waste time here. Soon, Lei Xingfeng and Xing Feng stood on the platform. They released their true bodies and activated the teleportation restriction again. The two continued forward. This time, the pressure wasn't great. The two easily dealt with it. However, it still took a long time. This was a super long-distance teleportation. It took about 10 days. The two were exhausted. The two came out of the teleportation formation. They didn't have time to check the surroundings. They found an empty space and sat down to eat and drink. Large pieces of red braised bull beef and a large pot of rice were served. The two of them ate heartily, consuming a large pot of white rice and a few dozen jin of red braised bull beef. After the meal, they also ate some fruits to replenish their bodies. Xing Feng rubbed his belly and said, "It's my first time maintaining my true body for so long. Although the teleportation pressure isn't great, it uses up a lot of energy." Lei Xingfeng shook his head and said, "Peak sovereign kings can't withstand it. If we don't have the dual seals, we won't have enough energy to replenish it. We will really die." Xing Feng lamented, "Back then, I was very wise. I didn't become a peak sovereign king and wanted to come out. If I really came out back then, I would probably have died on the way, killing people without spilling blood." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "There are probably many experts who would have foolishly stepped on this path. The result is probably all dead." Xing Feng said, "Most of them would have died in the first teleportation. Even if they could survive the first teleportation, they would probably have used up all their energy crystals." Lei Xingfeng said, "This is a path for cultivators with two true ring bodies. If you don't reach that level, you won't be able to walk it." Lei Xingfeng tidied up and said, "I wonder where this place is." Xing Feng relaxed and started to look around. It was water again. However, they seemed to be on an island. They could see another island in the distance. According to past experience, the teleportation platform should be there. Lei Xingfeng said in surprise, "It's the sea again? No, it should be a lake." He reached out, and a handful of water appeared in his palm. He lowered his head and tasted it. He nodded and said, "Indeed, it's lake water. This is fresh water. It can replenish my energy." Xing Feng said in surprise, How did you do it? We are more than 200 meters away from a lake. How did you get the water in your hand?" Lei Xingfeng said, "It's a small restriction. It's nothing." Actually, this was the effect of spatial restrictions. It wasn't as simple as he said. This was a spatial technique that could only be used when one's understanding of spatial restrictions reached a certain level. It wasn't simple at all. Xing Feng felt a headache whenever he heard the word restriction. However, he was still very envious of Lei Xingfeng for having so many restriction skills. He said, "Amazing. If we get something we can't get in the future, this will be a good method." Lei Xingfeng's heart skipped a beat. He secretly liked it. That was right. This technique was definitely a good way to rob and steal things. It was better to not reveal this technique in front of others in the future. The two flew up and landed on the island a few minutes later. They avoided the restriction circle and followed a winding path. Soon, the two saw the teleportation platform. Lei Xingfeng checked it. He had always been very serious about teleportation. He had been cultivating since he was young and had a big problem with his first teleportation. Therefore, he had always been very serious about teleportation and would never step on it carelessly. Xing Feng ran to the lake to replenish his water. Lei Xingfeng actually didn't need to replenish his water. He could get it from the mirror world. However, if there wasn't enough water in the mirror world, he would have to replenish it. Lei Xingfeng left the platform after observing the teleportation formation and ran to the lake. He thought he had enough water, but when he checked the mirror world, he was shocked. Due to the migration, a large number of people and livestock were in the mirror world. The amount of water needed was huge. He didn't expect the mirror world to be so short of water. Therefore, he ran to the lake to replenish his water. Xing Feng fetched bucket after bucket of water. They were all wooden buckets that were taller than a person. After fetching a bucket of water, he would switch to an empty bucket. It was very hard work. Lei Xingfeng directly dove into the lake. Then, Xingfeng saw a strange scene. All the water in the lake poured into Lei Xingfeng and formed a huge whirlpool. A large amount of water was directly sucked into the mirror world by Lei Xingfeng. In an instant, the dried-up ponds and small rivers in the mirror world were flooded with water. The lake here was extremely clear. There were large numbers of fish, shrimps, and all kinds of aquatic creatures. They all entered the mirror world under Lei Xingfeng's command. During this time, Wu Yang was also worried about the water. He didn't expect a large amount of water to enter the mirror world. When he heard the report from his subordinate, he rushed to the largest river in the mirror world. It had stopped flowing like a dead river, but now it was full of life again. Xingfeng was dumbfounded. He couldn't understand what Lei Xingfeng was doing. For some reason, the water surrounding Lei Xingfeng formed a huge whirlpool. After a while, he said, "A phone, what are you doing?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Playing with water." Xingfeng was speechless. "Playing with water? You're still in the mood to play with water? I really don't know what you're thinking." Of course, Lei Xingfeng wasn't playing with water. He could only use this as an excuse. Otherwise, he didn't know what to say. No matter what, he couldn't reveal the mirror world. Even Xingfeng couldn't. This was a treasure that all cultivators dreamed of. After soaking in the lake for half a day, Xingfeng had already fetched water and sat waiting. Lei Xingfeng had already swum to the deeper part of the lake. He purposely went to find a school of fish and put them into the mirror world. It could be considered as providing some food for the people in the mirror world. After checking the mirror world for a bit, he saw that the circulation of water had been formed. The almost dried-up pond, the small lake, and the two rivers were all filled with water, forming a new circulation. Only then did he stop and return to the shore. Chapter 857. Lei Xingfeng changed his clothes and said with a smile, "I felt much better after soaking in the water, so I also took a shower." His words blocked Xingfeng's question. Xingfeng originally wanted to complain, but after listening to Lei Xingfeng's explanation, he couldn't say anything. He said, "Let's go. Although this place is good, it's not a place to stay for long." Lei Xingfeng said, "Okay, let's go." "Old Xing, why do I feel that this place was deliberately passed by? Maybe it was to replenish the water?" Xingfeng said, Maybe it was just a coincidence." The two of them went on the platform and released their real bodies again. Lei Xingfeng activated the teleportation formation, and the two of them suddenly disappeared. The mirror realm was full of jubilation. Since everyone entered the mirror realm, the entire mirror realm had been completely sealed off. The problems that had been ignored in the past suddenly erupted, and one of the biggest problems was the water source. No one expected that the mirror realm didn't have enough water, and they couldn't contact Lei Xingfeng. This made all the higher-ups of the secret sect helpless. They didn't expect that a large amount of water would enter the mirror realm at the most critical time. This made Wu Yang and the others feel relieved. After solving the water problem, the entire mirror realm calmed down. With water, there was nothing to worry about. This water could be used for a few years without a problem. Wu Yang and Guqi continued to urge everyone to cultivate. Now, the entire secret sect was in a frenzy of cultivation, and no one dared to slack off. Most importantly, due to the abundant resources, especially after obtaining a batch of resources for low-level cultivators, the entire secret sect's cultivators had made great progress. Cultivators consumed a lot of resources, which was one of the reasons why cultivators migrated everywhere. It could be said that cultivators were the locusts of this world. Once they lost the support of resources, they would be finished. The people in the secret sect cultivated while waiting for Lei Xingfeng's return. Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng appeared on a platform again. After checking the restrictions around, Lei Xingfeng said, "Same as before, continue to find another platform." Xingfeng nodded, "Okay." In the end, the two of them searched for a long time, but they couldn't find another platform. In other words, this platform was the last one. Lei Xingfeng was puzzled. "Have we arrived?" Xingfeng shook his head. "No, I heard that the process is very complicated. It's not easy to get to where we are, which means that it's not easy to get out. Do you think it's difficult? Lei Xingfeng said, it's hard to say, but it's really not complicated. It's just continuous teleportation. Xingfeng said, Xing's is Xingfeng, Lei's. If Xing's, there's no nose. No. Noses is it's no noses is A's. Otherwise, there's no noses to Xing to S2's SS. This was a barren desert. There was nothing but rocks and sand everywhere. It was an extremely desolate place that wasn't suitable for humans to live in. Of course, it wasn't a threat to the two of them. Lei Xingfeng kept charging lightning into his eyes, trying to find another platform. Xingfeng flew in circles in the air, searching. This was the safest method, as they wouldn't miss a platform. The two of them searched back and forth, but they still couldn't find a teleportation platform. They flew to a faraway place and landed at the same time. Xingfeng said, that's not right. There's still nothings. Lei Xingfeng said, oh, in that case, let's check our secret door. Secret doors could detect nearby continents. However, according to one's cultivation level, the distance could be far or near. The two of them opened their secret doors at the same time. As expected, they both found a point they could go to. Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng said at the same time, there's... Xingfeng said, it's very far. Xi and Feng nodded. If you're not strong enough, you'll really die. At this point, only experts with 2 true ring bodies could pass through the secret door. Those who were slightly weaker wouldn't be able to pass through. Xingfeng shook his head and smiled bitterly. Once again, I've proven that I'm very wise. Lei Xingfeng laughed. This path isn't prepared for people like us. Xingfeng said, all right, let's go. He opened the secret door. Lei Xingfeng walked in, and he followed behind. This time, the teleportation through the secret gate had taken a long time. Even with Xingfeng's strength, his fire seal had already consumed 1/3 of its energy. When he came out of the secret gate, he was already complaining incessantly. If he had to replenish his energy, it would be very painful. Lei Xingfeng smiled. All right, I'll give you some energy crystals. Of course, he knew why Xingfeng was sad. There was no way to replenish energy crystals here. Everyone's collection of energy was limited. Even Lei Xingfeng was a bit reluctant to give up some of the stalagmites. It was too difficult to replenish energy here. Luckily, he still had a lot of energy stored in the mirror world. If he couldn't continue, he would find a way to replenish it. After Xingfeng replenished his fire seal, the two of them started searching. It was also a desert-like continent, but after searching for a while, they found a platform beside a rocky hill. Lei Xingfeng checked it and was stunned. He said, Old Xing, we're in big trouble. This is damaged. Xingfeng was shocked. What do you mean? This teleportation platform can't be used? Lei Xingfeng said, the restrictions around the platform were all destroyed. A small part of the teleportation restriction on the platform was also destroyed. Xingfeng said, can it be repaired? Luckily, they had Lei Xingfeng, a restriction master, or he would really go crazy. Lei Xingfeng said, we don't have the materials. With my skills, I can repair it. The problem is that we don't have the materials. Xingfeng was a calm person, but he still showed a frightened expression. He said, are we going to be trapped here until we die? He opened the secret door. As expected, there was only a spot left when they came. This meant that they had to go back. Xingfeng said, let's go back. Since it's damaged, there's no other way. In fact, Lei Xingfeng could use the mirror world to go back a part of the way. But even then, it could only go back a part of the way. Lei Xingfeng said, the platform we came from, teleportation, is one way. That means we can only come here and not go back. Xingfeng said, it's not the same way. He understood immediately. There was one way to enter outer space from the outside world, but there was another way to come out. It was a one-way trip. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, that's probably the case. Xingfeng was dumbfounded. He said, this, you can't fix it? Lei Xingfeng said, let's gather the materials and see if we can fix it. This teleportation formation wasn't complicated. Maybe other restriction masters would have a headache, but not Xingfeng, because he had already learned spatial restriction. The two of them gathered the materials for a long time, but they still couldn't gather the materials. Lei Xingfeng thought for a while and said, "Oh, there's another way." Xingfeng immediately became spirited. He asked what way. Lei Xingfeng said, "We have to go back and find the original teleportation formation." Xingfeng didn't understand. He said, "Isn't that a one-way trip? How can we go back?" Lei Xingfeng said, "It's very simple. We can take the materials from the original teleportation formation." Xingfeng slapped his thigh and said, "Yeah, haha, that's a good idea." Lei Xingfeng said, "But it'll cost a lot of energy to go back and come back." Xingfeng said, "The two of us can gather the energy." As he spoke, he took out a lot of energy crystals and gave them to Lei Xingfeng. At this time, no one could be stingy. He knew this very well. Lei Xingfeng said, "Old Xing, wait here. I'll be back soon." Xingfeng said, "Okay, I'll wait for you." Lei Xingfeng opened a secret door and returned to the original point. Lei Xingfeng quickly arrived at the platform. He walked up and carefully looked at the teleportation formation on the platform. This kind of work wasn't easy to do. He had to completely understand the mysteries within in order to have a chance of success. During this period of time, Lei Xingfeng had been studying spatial restriction. Because he had little sky, his understanding of spatial restriction had reached a very deep level. Therefore, his understanding of the teleportation formation on the platform had become even deeper. After studying for about 2 days, Lei Xingfeng had also specially mobilized Little Sky. After some verification, he finally understood and knew that he had a certain degree of confidence in repairing it. When he officially started to dismantle it, Lei Xingfeng still let Little Sky help him. It would be of great help to him in collecting some spatial materials. After busying himself for 3 whole days, he dismantled a large pile of materials. Most of them could be used. Lei Xingfeng calculated that it was enough for him. However, he wasn't willing to give up. A platform was integrated with a lot of materials. Since he was going to dismantle it, he had to do it thoroughly. In for a penny, in for a pound. If he was going to do it, he had to do it thoroughly. He even dug out the roots and directly dug down. In the end, he found a lot of strange crystals below. They were all fist-sized crystals. The energy they contained shocked even Lei Xingfeng. It was very pure. This was an unexpected harvest. Soon, Lei Xingfeng discovered that these crystals even had spatial attributes. This greatly surprised him. A total of thousands of crystals were excavated. This harvest made Lei Xingfeng very satisfied. After packing up, Lei Xingfeng didn't immediately return. Instead, he returned to the mirror realm. He didn't want to open the secret door. This consumed too much energy. It was better to go through the mirror realm. This was the most energy-efficient method. When Lei Xingfeng emerged from the courtyard, Wu Yang saw him at a glance. He said happily, "Are you in the outside world?" Lei Xingfeng smiled bitterly. "How can it be so easy? I'm still on the way, but I encountered a little difficulty." Gucci asked, "What difficulty?" Lei Xingfeng said, "The teleportation formation is half destroyed." Chapter 858. Everyone was stunned. Was this really difficult? This was definitely a nightmare. Thunderstorm said, "Is there a way to solve it?" Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "I dismantled a teleportation formation." Everyone was dumbfounded again. "What was this?" Wu Yang said, You plan to use the materials you dismantled?" Lei Xingfeng gave him a thumbs up and smiled. "That's right." Wu Yang reacted quickly and said, If it can't be fixed, the consequences will be really serious." Lei Xingfeng still gave him a thumbs up and said, "Ancestor is indeed an ancestor. You've hit the nail on the head." Wu Yang's expression suddenly became serious. He said, "Once you're trapped to death, does that mean we'll be trapped to death too?" Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "This is the advantage of having the mirror realm. I can still reach the previous teleportation point. Even if the distance is very far, I can still reach it. This gives me a chance to escape." Everyone was greatly relieved. Although the mirror realm was very good, it could not truly exist independently. Once it lost the support of the continent, How long could the resources inside last? Then it would really be a total death. When Lei Xingfeng first obtained the Mirror Realm, he guessed that the people in the Mirror Realm would be trapped to death or some other disaster. Lei Xingfeng clearly remembered that after entering the Mirror Realm, the desolation left a deep impression on him. Wu Yang said, "That's good, that's good." Gucci said, "Quickly tell Fatty to serve the food. A phone, take a rest. There's no rush." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Okay, eat some. I rarely eat outside. I've almost forgotten the taste of good food." For him, unless it was a last resort, he would not eat much unless there was good food. In that case, he would eat very seriously. He did not eat to fill his stomach, but to reminisce about a taste, a longing in his heart, or even some kind of obsession. Every time he tasted food, it would always remind him of many things. Jean Depang was still the same, smiling like a Mithraea. His body had become fatter, but he was not out of breath after walking a few steps. However, Lei Xingfeng's vision was different. He shook his head slightly, but did not try to persuade Jean Depang. He knew this guy would not listen. When all kinds of food was served, Jean Depang took out a bottle and handed it to Lei Xingfeng, smiling. "I have one bottle here. A phone here." With one look, Lei Xingfeng knew that it was the highest quality Fishman wine. He had given Jean Depang a lot, but with the passage of time, he did not have much Fishman wine. Worry said, "Wow, there's such a treasure. Fatty, give me a bottle too." "I found this by chance and put it in the storeroom. There's only one bottle left. I drank the rest." Wu Yang said indifferently, "I don't believe you." Jean Depang's face immediately turned bitter. He took out another bottle and said, "I really don't have any more." He was very popular, so the others only smiled and did not ask for more. Wu Yang smiled and said, "I knew it. How could a fatty not have any more? Humph, come, everyone drink a little." Those who could drink a small cup were all high-ranking members of the secret sect. There were 2 bottles of wine in total. It was good enough that each person could drink a cup, and it was a very small cup. Xian Feng only drank 1 cup. After tasting it for a long time, he spoke, "At that time when I stole the Fishman's wine cellar, I thought it was enough to drink, but I didn't expect that I wouldn't be able to get any more. Actually, the Fishmen are also foreign races. This time I met a foreign race in the ocean. Their strength was really strong." Wu Yang said, "You killed them." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "I killed one, but a group of them came. They only knew how to run." Everyone was shocked to be able to make Xian Feng flee. This person's strength was definitely not weak. Wu Yang said they were that strong. Lei Xingfeng said they were not inferior to peak stage monarchs. Among the group of people who came, there were probably existences similar to me. What else could I do but run? What a pity. There should be a lot of good things at the bottom of the sea. Wu Yang said, "Fortunately, you still remembered the Mirror Realm this time." Lei Xingfeng said, "What's wrong?" Gucci smiled and said, "Master, don't blame a phone. He probably didn't know that the Mirror Realm was short of water." Lei Xingfeng suddenly understood. He blushed and said, "I neglected this. I never thought that the Mirror Realm would be short of water. Unfortunately, there weren't any good water-type treasures. If we could find a good water-type treasure, the water in the Mirror Realm would be endless." Wu Yang wasn't blaming Lei Xingfeng. It was just that he and Gucci were really busy. For water, they even mobilized all the cultivators to take out the water stored in their hidden Lun space. Thunderstorm smiled and said, "We also didn't realize this problem. When we did, we were already caught off guard." Wu Yang said, "When we were at the Heavenly Moat, many people died of thirst. We actually continued to be careless. It was really a mistake. Don't blame a phone. It's our fault that we didn't think of it." Gucci said, "Water-type treasures. I wonder where we can get them." Lei Xingfeng said, "It depends on luck. If we're lucky, we might get them quickly. If not, He could only laugh. Treasures were always hard to come by. In places like the Fantasy Sky Realm, there might be a chance, but other places were really hard to say. Wu Yang said, "No rush. We have water now anyway. However, a phone, you have to replenish the Mirror Realm's water at any time." Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "No problem. I will pay attention. After eating and drinking, Lei Xingfeng got up and said, I have to go back and repair the teleportation formation. Wu Yang and the others got up and watched Lei Xingfeng go to the center of the courtyard and then disappear. Lei Xingfeng went through the mirror realm and directly returned to the continent where Xingfeng was. When he came to the teleportation formation, he saw Xingfeng sleeping on it. Kicking him, Xingfeng spoke, Hey, old Xing, I'm so busy that I'm about to die, yet you're sleeping so well. Before he kicked him, Xingfeng sat up and said, Did you get the materials? Lei Xingfeng said, Of course. Xingfeng was immediately happy. He said, Can it be used? Lei Xingfeng said, Of course it can be used. If it couldn't be used, the unluckiest one would not be him, but his companion Xingfeng. He had a place to escape to, but Xingfeng simply couldn't escape. In these two continents, if one couldn't move, then one would be a wandering savage, never to leave. Xingfeng said, Yes, of course it can be used. His face was a little pale. Lei Xingfeng went to the platform. A corner of the platform had collapsed, but the damage wasn't too serious. Therefore, Lei Xingfeng was confident that he could fix it. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to do it. It wasn't that he couldn't fix it, but that he needed too many materials. Repairing it bit by bit, refining it bit by bit. It was Xingfeng's first time making it. There were many difficulties and questions that required him to slowly solve. Xingfeng didn't rush Lei Xingfeng. He didn't dare to rush him, for fear that he would disturb Lei Xingfeng. Xingfeng was well aware of how serious the situation was. There was simply nowhere to go. This was definitely a land of death. There was simply no way to escape. The entire teleportation formation was very complicated, even more complicated than the previous one. Lei Xingfeng calculated as he repaired it. There were limited materials, and every material had to be used to the best effect. Nothing could be wasted. As he repaired it, he also needed to do some verification and experiments. He treated this teleportation formation carefully. This was their escape route. If this thing was damaged, Lei Xingfeng's scalp would go numb just thinking about it. If he could use the original components, he would do his best to use the original components. If he couldn't, he would repair it. If it was completely damaged, then he would need to dismantle the components and modify them before adding them back in. Only Lei Xingfeng knew how hard it was to do this. Fortunately, he had Shao Kong, who could verify it with Lei Yin. Otherwise, he wouldn't know whether it was correct or not. Time passed slowly. Xingfeng looked calm on the surface. He didn't dare to pressure Lei Xingfeng, but he was very anxious inside. He ran around the continent and found that there were no plants or animals. There was also no water, which was the most important thing. Although he had replenished some water a while ago, how many days could it last? Perhaps it could last a few hundred days, or even 7 or 8 years. But what would happen after that? On this day, Xingfeng flew back to the platform and landed. He saw Lei Xingfeng sitting on the platform with his eyes closed, deep in thought. Xingfeng walked over quietly and sat down onto the platform. Lei Xingfeng opened his eyes and said, Did you find anything? Xingfeng couldn't help but spit and said, Bah, this place is extremely desolate. I didn't find anything. There isn't even water here. I didn't want to give up, so I released my real body and dug a huge hole to see if there was any underground water. The result, guess what? Lei Xingfeng said, No water? Xingfeng said, Not only is there no water, I dug less than 10 meters down and found only rocks. There was nothing useful at all. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, This is the desolate continent. There should be no water. Xingfeng asked carefully, Feng, how is it? This was the first time he asked this question. He was very nervous and looked at Lei Xingfeng expectantly. Lei Xingfeng said, It's more or less done, but I still need to check a few more times. After a few problems are solved, there will be no more problems. Xingfeng was overjoyed and said, Really? Lei Xingfeng found it funny and said, I lied to you. Xingfeng was dumbfounded. He said, Ah. Lei Xingfeng couldn't help but laugh. Xingfeng didn't know why, but looking at Lei Xingfeng, he suddenly felt relieved. He said, I will wait patiently. He suddenly understood one thing. He was trapped, but Lei Xingfeng was also trapped. Chapter 859. Coupled with Lei Xingfeng's laughter, Xing Feng believed that the problem was almost solved. Otherwise, Lei Xingfeng wouldn't have laughed like that. That was a sign of relaxation. Lei Xingfeng said, "It's solved. It's all solved. There's no problem. We can even leave now." Xing Feng smiled bitterly and shook his head. "Why did you have to lie to me? I'm already annoyed enough." "All right, you were waiting for me to come back." Xian Feng replied, "No, I was checking the teleportation restriction and realized that there are 2 points that can be connected. This made me unsure which one is the right one to go to." Xing Feng thought for a while and said, "What's the difference between the distant and the near?" "I'm talking about the teleportation formation." Lei Xingfeng said, "The distant one is one way, the near one is two-way, which means we can go back and forth." Xing Feng said, "Then let's go to the near one. If we go the wrong way, we can come back. If we go the right way, then we don't need to go the distant one. We can't come back." Lei Xingfeng said, "That's the problem. I think the one-way one is the right way, but the near one is a problem." Xing Feng said, "Why is there a problem?" Xian Feng spoke, "Since it's going back and forth, it means that this path doesn't necessarily lead to the outside world, and let me think." A thought flashed through his mind, giving him a possibility. Maybe this is a resource land? Through this teleportation formation? Or some other purpose? We can't spend so much resources and energy and get nothing, right? Xing Feng was curious too. He said, "That's true. If that's the case, the distant one might be the right way, but the near one is also a problem. Who would build such a teleportation formation without any benefits?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Actually, the near one isn't that close. We can't reach the hidden door. Since we can go back and forth, let's go to the near one first." Xing Feng agreed. He said, "Since we can go back and forth, we won't lose anything. Let's go to the near one." The two of them stood on the teleportation platform. Lei Xingfeng hesitated for a moment and said, "We don't have to reveal our true bodies. The pressure will be slightly greater, but we should be able to deal with it." Xing Feng said, "Whatever you say." Lei Xingfeng activated the teleportation restriction. In an instant, the two of them disappeared from the platform. A towering mountain peak that reached the clouds. There was a small teleportation platform at the top of the mountain. It was surrounded by cliffs and large chunks of ice. Lei Xingfeng and Xing Feng stood on the cliffs. Below them was a sea of fog and clouds. The mountain directly pierced through the sea of clouds. This platform was very well protected. There were restrictions all around the platform. Even the cliff had restrictions. Moreover, these restrictions were very strange. Once they were touched, whether it was a human or an animal, they would be teleported halfway up the mountain and have to climb up again. Most importantly, there were several small restrictions that were connected to the defensive restrictions. They were the sky restriction. In other words, don't even think about flying up. In fact, Lei Xingfeng could fly up. As long as he replaced the restriction nodes, there would be no problem. Xing Feng asked, "Is there a way down?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Of course there is a way down. Follow me. Stick to the cliff and go down. There's a winding path." Xing Feng believed in Lei Xingfeng's attainment in restrictions. He didn't doubt his words. He said, "You go first, I go back." Lei Xingfeng said, "Okay, let's go down together." Then, Lei Xingfeng slid down the cliff. Xing Feng followed closely behind. They slid down the cliff in a zigzag manner. Xing Feng knew that if he didn't follow Lei Xingfeng's method, he would definitely touch the restrictions. After a short while, the two of them had descended a lot. This mountain was very high. According to Lei Xingfeng's estimation, it was at least 20,000 meters high. The top half of the mountain was covered in ice and snow. If they didn't have the strength, even if there were no restrictions, they wouldn't be able to go up and down. Gradually, Lei Xingfeng found that moss appeared on the cliff. The ice and snow gradually decreased. The surroundings were full of fog. He couldn't see the scenery below at all. However, Lei Xingfeng could still see the passage that was specially left. If it wasn't someone like Lei Xingfeng who could see the restriction nodes and didn't have the route map to get out of the restriction, then it was almost inevitable that he would touch the restriction. This path was really designed a bit abnormally. Often, the two of them had to move horizontally for hundreds of meters before they could find a way to go down. Some paths were on the vertical cliff. Without a certain strength, it was impossible to go down. Even if the two of them had extraordinary strength, they were still covered in sweat. It wasn't their bodies that were tired, but their hearts that were tired. Soon, the two of them descended to the waist of the mountain. Then they saw the surrounding peaks. Aside from the mountain they came down from, the other peaks were all a few thousand meters high. The highest was 10,000 meters, which wasn't even half the height of this mountain. The surrounding peaks stretched as far as the eye could see. They were all snowy mountains. The two of them continued to descend. There were no signs of restrictions here. The two of them simply left the cliff and directly flew down. This speed was much faster. They were like meteors falling down. In just a few dozen seconds, the two of them were close to the ground. This was a forest. The two of them didn't land in this primitive forest. Instead, they were floating above the canopy. Because all the way here was a desolate land, it was rare to see a large forest of plants, especially this kind of primitive forest that had grown for who knew how many years. Lei Xingfeng said, "I guess there are resources here. That's why this restriction was set up." Xingfeng nodded and said, "It looks like it." Generally speaking, a continent with resources would show signs of vitality. Of course, this wasn't absolute. Some materials could only be produced in extremely harsh environments. However, it was undeniable that most materials were produced in continents with vitality. Lei Xingfeng said, "Since a teleportation restriction can be set up, this is either a passage or an amazing resource production area." Xingfeng was also excited. Resources were something that every cultivator wanted. The reason why they had to go to the outside world was because the resources in the outer realm were no longer suitable for Lei Xingfeng and Xingfeng's cultivation needs. They had to go. Staying here meant being trapped in the outer realm without any progress. Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's go. Let's see if there are other platforms." The clouds in the sky were very thick. However, it was cool and refreshing below. They could see far into the distance. Countless birds were circling in the sky, rising and falling. From time to time, strange roars could be heard from the forest. Due to the cover of the clouds, it was slightly dark above the forest. The two of them flew above the treetops and attracted a large flock of birds. Due to the continuous mountain terrain, the two of them flew along the low-lying valley and above the forest. They could see huge, ancient trees. These ancient trees could even grow up to 1,000 meters. A single tree could cover a large area. Lei Xingfeng was full of praise. He said, "I don't know how long it has been since there were any traces of humans in this forest. If it wasn't for the teleportation formation, there probably wouldn't be any human footprints here. It's too beautiful." Xingfeng didn't feel anything. He said, "It's just a forest. There's nothing beautiful about it. I've seen too many." Lei Xingfeng was speechless. His so-called beauty was actually a concept from his previous life. He always had his own appreciation for natural beauty. Too lazy to argue with Xingfeng, the two of them flew along the low-lying valley. After searching for a long time, they didn't find any restrictions. With Lei Xingfeng's eyesight, as long as there were any traces of restrictions, he would be able to detect them. After flying around a few times, Lei Xingfeng judged there's only one teleportation formation platform. There shouldn't be anything else. In other words, this is not the path we want to take. Now, let's see if this is a resource area. If it is, let's stay here for a while. Xingfeng said straightforwardly, "Okay." Lei Xingfeng said, "Where is the teleportation formation? You should be able to find it, right?" Xingfeng said, "Why?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Let's split up and search. We need to be more efficient." Xingfeng nodded. "Okay, that works too. We don't need to fight when we find something good. Haha, I'm just kidding. I'll go left and you go right. No matter if we find something or not, we'll meet at the mountain peak where the teleportation formation is in 30 days. Lei Xingfeng said, "Okay, if this place is worth excavating, then we'll discuss how long we'll stay." The two of them had plenty of time. They didn't mind wasting time on the way. As long as they could find something valuable, they wouldn't mind even if they had to stay for 8 or 10 years. Therefore, there was no problem at all if they split up temporarily. Up until now, they hadn't found any dangerous people or animals. This seemed to be an extremely primitive wild forest. After Xingfeng left, Lei Xingfeng flew to the right. Along the way, large patches of primitive forest covered the valleys and mountainsides. Near the snow line, there were some shrubs and moss. Lei Xingfeng saw the vague silhouettes of animals in the forest. There were also waterfalls flowing down. There were streams converging in the valleys. Flying along the streams, they soon saw a river. This river cut a canyon in the ground. The water flowed rapidly, making a loud splashing sound. With a slight movement of his body, Lei Xingfeng was already above the river. Because this area was basically covered by the forest, even if there were any treasures underground, they would be covered tightly by the forest. Even Lei Xingfeng couldn't see anything. However, it was different above the river. This rapid river cut a canyon in the ground. There were very few plants on the cliffs on both sides. His eyes came in handy. Silver light flickered in and out of his eyes. He looked around while flying slowly. Soon, Lei Xingfeng found many bright spots. Those were the signs of mineral deposits. As he flew, the bright spots along the way weren't enough for Lei Xingfeng to stop. These mines were scattered and didn't seem to be particularly precious. Lei Xingfeng was very picky when it came to minerals. He hoped to find thunder-type minerals or wood-type minerals. In fact, there should be many wood-type materials here. Chapter 860. If there was a primitive forest, then there would be good wood-attributed materials. But Xinfeng wasn't sensitive to wood-attributed materials, so he didn't focus on wood-attributed materials yet. In a short moment, he had already flown a few thousand meters. From afar, the sound of water could be heard. Xinfeng flew over only to see a gigantic waterfall crashing down, raising a few hundred meters into the air. Then, Lei Xingfeng saw an extremely thick tree trunk stuck in the rocks of the waterfall. With his eyesight, he immediately realized that it was definitely a treasure. The wood was dark and shiny, with moss and green spots on its surface, but in Lei Xingfeng's eyes, it shone brightly. The tree trunk was at least 4 meters in diameter, but it was broken in the middle, leaving only a 10-meter-long branch near the root. Lei Xingfeng immediately returned to the mirror world. There were still many people in the yard. Since they were all in the mirror world, they had nowhere else to go. So many people gathered in Lei Xingfeng's house. Lei Xingfeng appeared, and everyone was surprised. Wu Yang said, "A Feng, why are you back?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I came back to find someone. Is my little sister here?" Gucci ordered, and a few servants ran out. Thunderstorm said, "Why are you looking for your little sister?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I found a treasure, but I'm not sure. I asked my little sister to take a look. It's wood type." Everyone looked envious. They had a good relationship with his little sister. As long as Lei Xingfeng found a wood-type treasure, he would bring it to Lei Xingyao. After a while, Lei Xingyao ran over. She asked, "Brother, are you looking for me?" Lei Xingfeng waved, and Lei Xingyao ran to his side and grabbed his arm. She said, "Brother, what's the matter?" Lei Xingfeng said, "Come with me." In an instant, the two of them disappeared, leaving behind a group of people staring at each other. They did not know why Lei Xingfeng was in such a hurry. The two of them hovered above the waterfall. Xian Yao immediately saw the piece of wood. Her eyes flashed with surprise. She said, "Brother, you brought me to see this thing? What a treasure!" Lei Xingfeng asked, "Can we use it?" Xian Yao giggled and said, "Yes, I can use it. It's good stuff." Lei Xingfeng said, "That's good. You can keep it." Xian Yao put away the piece of wood and looked around, asking curiously, "Brother, where is this place?" Lei Xingfeng said, "I don't know where this place is, but I just arrived here, so I don't know if there's any danger. After I check it out, if it's possible, you can come in, but there's a big possibility that I can't bring you in." Xian Yao asked why. Lei Xingfeng patiently explained, "Little sister, I have a companion. He doesn't know that I have the mirror world. Xian Yao said, "Wow, is he very strong?" Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Our strength is about the same." Actually, his current strength was higher than Xian Yao's. Xian Yao said, "Wow, so strong." She knew how strong her brother was, and with the passage of time, Lei Xingfeng was already the #1 expert in the hidden sect. No one could compare to him. Lei Xingfeng nodded and said, "Yes, he's very strong." He was also the one who discovered this path. Xian Yao did not dare to stay. She said, "Okay, I'll go back." Lei Xingfeng said, "I'll send you back." He opened the mirror world's secret door and sent Xian Yao in. At this time, the mirror world was already sealed. Other than Lei Xingfeng, no one else could open the door. They continued to follow the river under the waterfall. Along the way, they found a lot of materials, many of which were high quality. However, Lei Xingfeng could not understand. If there were only so many materials, it would be too extravagant to build a transportation platform. There was no need. So Lei Xingfeng continued downstream. He knew that the river flowed towards the plains. Now that they were in the mountains, there might be some treasures in the plains. After flying for 3 days, Lei Xingfeng finally flew out of the mountains. Then he saw an endless plain and an endless forest. It was a magnificent sight. Some of the trees were unbelievably tall. According to Lei Xingfeng's estimation, they were at least 2,000 meters tall. They were like mountains, but they were actually trees. Even if Lei Xingfeng released his real body, he would not even be able to show his head in this forest. He did not know how long this forest had been growing. Lei Xingfeng was envious of this continent. It had such vitality. Unfortunately, this was just passing by. Even if he used the mirror world in the future, he might not be able to reach it. In other words, he only had one chance. Unless he walked this path again, he would not be able to come back. So the most important thing was to hurry and search. Lei Xingfeng found that flying above the canopy, he could not see anything. There were thick trees blocking his view. No matter how good his eyes were, there was no way he could see through them. There were basically no gaps in the trees. Lei Xingfeng had no choice but to land on the ground. He found that the forest was even more difficult to walk through. The dense branches and branches almost took up all the space. Lei Xingfeng could not help but complain. Even if there were treasures underground, he could not see them. Various precious plants were shining, attracting his attention from time to time. Unfortunately, they were all pharmacist's favorites. They had nothing to do with him, and he could not bring Xian Yao with him. So other than some spiritual plants that were shining brightly, Lei Xingfeng ignored everything else. After thinking for a long time, Lei Xingfeng could not find a suitable way. He could only go to the side of the river and continue moving forward. He gradually thought it through. If he found something, he would take it. If he didn't, then so be it. In this world, everything would not go according to plan. Because the entire river was covered by the canopy, this river was like an underground river. Lei Xingfeng flew above the river and did not fly above the canopy. He estimated that if he really flew above the canopy, he would not even be able to find the river. It was gloomy and damp. Although the current was turbulent, the water was extremely clear. If the current was slightly calmer, he could see the bottom of the river. Moreover, he could see large schools of fish swimming. Some of them were more than 10 meters long, and some were even tens of meters long. Lei Xingfeng saw a large fish with a back full of barbs. It was 50 to 60 meters long, and its body underwater should be even longer. He also saw a huge python that was a few hundred meters long, slowly swimming along the riverbank. With its length and size, Lei Xingfeng estimated that he would not even be enough to fill the gaps between its teeth. They were all incomparably huge. This proved one of Lei Xingfeng's points. There was life force here that did not exist anywhere else. That was why such huge creatures were born. If there were people here, they must be from the giant tribe. This thought flashed through Lei Xingfeng's mind. Boom! A huge tree fell and directly smashed into the river, creating a huge wave. Lei Xingfeng was almost hit. He quickly dodged and looked towards the shore. He saw a huge head poking out of the forest and then burying its head in the water. The huge body was faintly discernible. Lei Xingfeng could not help but shake his head and sigh. If this was in his hometown, this thing's body could ignore many cultivators. Lei Xingfeng did not stop. He did not want to be entangled with these animals. There was no point in killing them. At most, he could get some meat. After flying for an unknown period of time, light began to appear above the river. The surrounding trees gradually became sparse. From time to time, large groups of animals could be seen drinking by the river. When Lei Xingfeng's eyes suddenly lit up, he saw an endless grassland. The grass here was outstanding. They were all 7 to 8 meters tall. He had never seen such grass before. There were even some grass that were 40 to 50 meters tall, forming a huge grass pile. He had never seen grass that was as thick as a bowl. Every grass was like a small tree. Lei Xingfeng was dumbfounded. If he released his real body, he would probably feel that this world was normal. Then, Lei Xingfeng saw groups of herbivores. They were all unimaginably huge. Some ate grass, some ate meat. Soon, Lei Xingfeng also saw beasts that ate meat. They were also extremely huge. Lei Xingfeng felt like he was in the African grassland in his previous life. However, his real body was not much bigger than a mouse. If he released his real body, then he would have the body of a normal person. Lei Xingfeng flew up. He was only the size of an ordinary bird in the air. However, he did not care about this. What he cared about was whether there were any mines or treasures in this grassland. His eyes flickered with a silver light. Soon, he realized that this was indeed a treasure land. The entire ground, even with the cover of grass, was much better than the forest. Suddenly, he saw a variety of colors emerging from the ground. This meant that there were all kinds of mines underground. What the F***CK? This is indeed a good place. No wonder they specially built a teleportation array. What kind of treasures are buried underground? They are all connected. Lei Xingfeng did not delay. He quickly found a place with a strong treasure light and directly revealed his real body to dig down. Fortunately, there were huge weeds around him that could cover his body slightly. In a few minutes, Lei Xingfeng had dug down into the ground. After forming a huge pit, he saw the mines inside. He was not in a hurry to collect them. Instead, he went outside the big pit and quickly started to set up restrictions. This was a common-sense method. Only by using a restriction could they be at ease and boldly excavated. Soon, after digging a huge hole in the ground, Lei Xingfeng withdrew his real body and returned to the mirror realm. He emerged from his own courtyard. How much could he dig up with his own strength? Even if Lei Xingfeng was powerful, the amount that Lei Xingfeng could dig up was definitely not as much as the entire hidden sect strength. When Wu Yang saw Lei Xingfeng, he smiled and said, "A phone probably came back to ask for help. Gao Yi said he's so powerful. How could he come back to ask for help?" Lei Xingfeng smiled and said, "Ancestral Master is right. I had to come back to ask for help. I need to mobilize all of my strength. Hee, let's all go out and dig." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.